On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt and Nick will take another trip to the jewel planets of the Old Republic as they break down the fourth episode of Skeleton Crew. What is up with all of the At planets? There's an Achrann in Star Wars. Neil's got some legit riz. All of these topics and more will be touched on by the dudes. Stay tuned, as this will be their last live stream of the year while they break for the holidays. Will Matt be able to commit to the break? Only time will tell, so make sure you're following the SWTS on all platforms for show updates. Of course, they'll end the show with the question of the week responses and the latest round of Star Wars fan artist features. Punch it, Chewie.
Hey now, everybody! Welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Time Show, and I am kitted out. Welcome. Hey there, Michael Kramer. Thank you. Happy holidays back to you. What an episode last night. I think he's probably talking about Skeleton Crew, which we will most definitely take a deep dive into. But for now, we're just going to do what we usually do. We're going to do a little Ask Us Anything, a little pop culture talk. I got 3 movies to review for you that I checked out over the past week. There's a little low-hanging fruit Andor Season 2 story to talk about. Gamers will probably understand the theme behind that story. But it's good to be here. It's good to be talking Star Wars because there is always time for Star Wars time. And I'm pretty sure we've just hit our goal. Now that we are a monetized channel, I set a goal for the chat, and Michael Kramer got us there. So I guess it's time for me to do a dance. I don't know if you guys saw it, but you should see, I don't know what's going on here, like a goal in there. But we've reached the goal in the vertical live stream. Thanks to Mike Kramer. You are the man. So I guess it's time to at least do one dance, because that's what I promised. Ready? There you go. So the dance is in. You guys get what you pay for here at the SWTS. As always, appreciate you there, Misdivided Skywalker. Speaking of Misdivided, we were hanging out in the Beyond the Dune Seas live stream last week. It was kind of fun. I think I got a little annoying there. Let's just say I'm not used to being a passive listener, observer of Star Wars content. I feel the need to vomit up my thoughts as people are talking. So I was ripping and rolling over on BTDS. It was good to see those guys, and a few of you were in there. Like I said, Divided was in there. Kramer's in there whipping around his big wallet. So kudos to you all. Thank you, Nova. I know. That dance was pretty sweet. If I had enough room, I would have done the gritty for everyone, but I'm kind of constrained right here, so apologies. Also, apologies, I don't have my official work hat on. That's right, people. I opened the show with the new Columbia Vader Collection hoodie, as you can see. If you're on the live stream, if not, check us out one time. Wednesdays, 5 p. East, or as close as you can get. YouTube.com/Star Wars Time Show. But yeah, so the Columbia stuff finally came in. If you're in our Discord, you understand that this was quite a saga to get my Darth Vader collection stuff this year. I mean, Columbia does a Star Wars collection every year. This year it was Darth Vader themed, so I went a little nuts, as they like to say, in the collectible space. Ordered enough items to essentially feed a family for a month or two. And then I eagerly awaited their arrival, and they never showed up on the day they were promised to show up. In fact, it took 5 extra days for my stuff to show up. Multiple calls to Columbia support. It was a nightmare. I lost many years of life, probably had a stroke. But I got the stuff, and I dig it. I mean, the hoodie is fantastic. Although, for those of you that I duped into buying this stuff, it is definitely different quality than the last 3 years of Columbia's Star Wars collection. I was telling you all these things are essentially like buying a winter coat. You don't have to wash them. And this thing shows up and makes me look like an asshole because it's fairly thin. It's nice and stretchy. It feels super comfortable, but definitely not as thick and warmth providing as the even last year's the Hoth Rebel collection. Who's up in here? My man B Mad. Yeah, no one's heard of no At Attin up in this piece. That's right. All we know about is At Aytuu, At Achrann, At Acoda, At Arissia, At Aravin. We got all the ats, including the At. Oh, speaking of that, do I have OnlyFans? I wish, man. What could I do for an OnlyFans channel? That's the question. I mean, maybe I could show off my pretty painted toenails. Maybe tickle my teats. You never know. You never know. That's right. None of us have heard of At Attin, but we've all heard of At Achrann. That's where LeBron James is from, just in case you haven't figured that one out yet. So, yeah, don't worry, people. We're here to talk about how nobody's heard of no At Attin, what went down in Skeleton Crew Episode 4. Can't say I remember no At Attin. That's literally the title of the episode, in case anyone hasn't caught on yet. It was good. It was good. Not my favorite of the season. It definitely felt like a middle of the season type of episode where we were moving pieces around a little bit, developing our characters a bit more than making things overly exciting. But hey, it was still Star Wars, still quality. We still got little drips of the mystery. And speaking of drips, holy hell, does Neil got that Riz. Neil's Riz is strong, as we saw it working on our girl Hana. So instead of hey now, we got a hey nah in the Star Wars universe. Thank you, Bat. It is a nice sweatshirt. Hopefully you like it as well. Once again, I'm appearing overly white on the stream. Something with the lighting here. Who knows? Who really cares, right? You all love me either way. So we'll get into some things here. I'm just popping around, looking at some analytics, clicking around, checking out the health of our streams. We got streams all over the place. I can insert ads now. I don't even know what that means. I guess I can just fire off ads. Let's see what it happens. This would be on the and apologies, we're new here to being monetized. So let's see. Ready and go. I wonder if an ad just popped up on the horizontal version of the stream. And just, I want to be fair to everyone. Let's see if we can pop an ad up over on the vertical stream now. And there we go. So eat it, people. I'm sorry. Hopefully I'm not scaring anyone away. But we did just get that stuff. Bat, you just got an Amazon Fresh ad. Awesome. All right. I promise I will not be hitting that button manually. All right. If something happens, it's because YouTube is now deciding to add ads into our stream for their own benefit. I just wanted to hit the button because just like Wim, I cannot help myself when there's a button literally flashing saying, hit me. Well, that's funny. So Bango got a Steam ad. No, he said my stream dropped. B-Man got a Star Trek mobile game. Someone got Amazon Fresh. That just goes to show you that's what you all were searching today. All right. Sorry about that. No more me touching the ad button, I promise. If any ads pop up, you blame it on YouTube. You know what I mean? All right. Well, I think that's enough of a preamble in here. As always, we are waiting for young Nick to come back from work, which we hope will happen soon here in a few minutes. So while we're waiting for him, let's get into some of our pop culture talk for the week. And you know what that entails? It's time to talk about the latest round of movies my little chubby ass checked out on my AMC A-list program. That's right. I tend to check out as many movies as life will allow me because I am an A-lister. That gives me 3 movies a week. I forget what the week is, but whatever, 3 movies a week. And I'm trying to capitalize it now that I'm on break for the next 4. So starting last week, I went to go check out Y2K. Okay. I think this might be Blumhouse. I can't, or A24. I can't remember. It's one of those. It's silly. It's kind of dumb. I think it does earn its 50% Rotten Tomato. I'd probably give it a 6 if I had to. But quite frankly, it's nice and short. It's like an 80-minute long movie, so you're not going to lose a lot of life. But I'm telling you, the nostalgia for anyone that was in high school or in college when Y2K was a thing is pretty solid. All right, I graduated high school in '98, so obviously I think it was my sophomore year of college. That New Year's would have been my Y2K year. And I think this movie, Y2K, does a really good job of capturing the look, feel, tone of that point in time, that late 90s, early aughts. People on their computers calling up AOL, AIM, just stuff like that. The basic looking websites, having Easter eggs on websites, the music that was playing. I mean, hell, the soundtrack of Y2K alone for a Gen Xer or an older millennial might be worth the watch. It's completely nonsensical. I mean, essentially Y2K, the machines come alive and just start stabbing the shit out of meat bags. So the premise is completely silly. But like I said, if you were of age for Y2K, I'm meaning in high school or in college, I think you'll at least smile a little bit. Your soul will get a little bit of a nostalgia dump, if you know what I'm saying. Okay? So that is Y2K. It's not really starring anyone you would know. I think that Rachel Ziegler's in it. And, she's going to be in the Snow White. She's been in a few other movies here. But it's fun. Not great, but fun. Definitely think it flopped at the box office. So there's a good chance it's probably streaming somewhere this week. All right, yeah, see Bango, my fellow Gen Xer saying, man, times were better then. They sure were. And Bat, he was in Oregon and slept through Y2K. What's up with that, Bat? Yeah, I mean, like Bango's saying, we had AIM, so AOL Instant Messenger instead of all the other crap we have now, MySpace instead of Facebook. Chat rooms in AIM. Yeah, it was a fun time, Bango, fun time. But then social media was invented, and now we're all gonna die. Oh, divided? You're not kidding. I'm not. Listen, I know it's my era, but I think the '90s was the last great decade of original music. 60s, 70s. I mean, come on, that stuff it's legendary. It's epic. It is gospel. 80s, I'm not going to fully hate on the 80s and the hair band movement, but the 80s were the 80s. It was kind of a phase. You don't really have a lot of artists that have really stuck around since the 80s. You know what I mean? But then the 90s came around and grunge and alternative, and my goodness, there were some great bands that popped up, great albums, great music. Yeah, Bat, that's right. 90s, best era since the 70s. Gotcha. Oh, Bango, I forgot. You are not a millennial. You are not a Gen Xer. You millennial scumbag. Just kidding, millennials. We love you. All right, so that's Y2K. Like I said, if you're of my generation, maybe millennials, I think you'll appreciate it. It is dumb, so you don't have to worry about paying attention or possibly even being fully alert. The next one here, I know everyone's going to roll their eyes and be like, dude, why do you watch this crap? Why do you jump on these grenades for us? And I'll tell you, well, because of the AMC A-list program. I want to maximize my 3 screenings a week. So when I have the time to do it, I'm going to go watch movies. So yes, I went and checked out Kraven the Hunter from Sony's Spider-Man, whatever universe they're trying to create with, Madam Web and Venom. And I don't know jack about Kraven. I thought Kraven was a bad guy. Maybe he still is. I have no idea. But I did go check out this movie, even though everyone on the planet in the Geekverse was like, Kraven sucks. It may be the worst Sony Spider-Verse movie or whatever we want to call their verse. And, outside of Aaron Taylor Johnson's ripped six-pack, I mean, dude definitely got jacked for the role. There's no doubt about it. There's not much to take from Kraven. I will applaud them for going for an R rating. All right, so we do have violence on the level of Deadpool, just without the humor and interesting story. We got some foul language in there, multiple F-bombs, so I'm down with that type of stuff. I like that they took a risk on a kind of a hard R rating. But everything else is just kind of like blah. I mean, Aaron Taylor himself is not very good in this movie. I mean, action-wise, he's pretty competent, looks the part. Acting-wise, I don't know. Like, things were not jiving with him in most scenes and his castmates. So, it's like what Sir Dork is saying. It's not something that's going to make you want to light your face on fire for watching or stab your eyes out with a rusty shiv. But it's also not something you're going to see and be like, holy crap, I can't wait to talk about that or see it again, or I'm going to theory craft over it. It's Sony Marvel. And it's middling. I liked it better than Madam Web, not as much as Venom. It's kind of in that space right there. Yeah, so there you go. It was, yeah, I mean, Sir Dork again saying Kraven had good CG. It's funny. I mean, Kraven, I imagine they spent, hey, KB, as you can see if you're on the live stream, I got the crew kids laid up on my desk, and clearly it's not in a good spot because my fat arm keeps hitting them. But look at those guys. Look at, we got KB, Fern, Wim, and Neo, and then Jod's behind them hanging out with Grogu. But like Sir Dork was saying, everything about Kraven seems like effort was put into it, money was put into it, CG not bad, action scenes not bad. I mean, it doesn't look cheap. It just it feels cheap, and maybe it's the director, maybe it was the direction that he gave the cast, but it was kind of just ho-hum. I mean, Kraven, it's a 5 out of 10, something like that. Unless you're on a program like me, I wouldn't rush out to a theater. You probably just wait till this inevitably pops up on Max or something like that. But hey, Sony keeps trying until they just sell all of their Marvel shit to Disney, though. We're still going to have little gems like this pop up. All right, and then last but certainly not least, we had some Tolkien drop last week in the animated, or shall I say the anime-mated Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which was presented by Peter Jackson. It was a film by Kenji Kamiyama, who I'm assuming is a famous anime person. And it's set about, I don't know, it's like 200 years, 143 years prior to the events of the War of the Rings, or as we call it, Lord of the Rings. So it apparently tells a story that's not considered legend in Tolkien's universe. While I believe a lot of the characters Tolkien does mention, obviously Helm of Helm's Deep, Helm Hammerhand, his sons, Wolf of the was the Northmen or the Dunlading, something like that. That stuff I know Tolkien is at least briefly mentioned in talking about the legends of men. But really the story was about Hera, Helm's only daughter, and kind of how, as we saw even Éowyn during the Lord of the Rings, how females all across Middle Earth, but particularly with men, with the tribes of men, they're looked at like our females were back then, and some still are. You're just here for us men to serve a purpose, either to marry you off or, to appease a warring tribe, something. But your voice means nothing. Your actions can't ever live up to a men's actions. So that's kind of the crux of the story. So Hera is definitely the star. That's who you follow in the War of the Rohirrim. So it's good. Like, hear me out. I enjoyed this. I would say I'm not a huge fan of the anime aesthetic, especially the frame rate that gets really slow during action sequences. It's almost like flip book shit, or even slower than that. So not a huge fan of Lord of the Rings anime. It didn't look bad. It just, listen, it's a me thing. I want it to be a bit more fluid. I think that the biggest downside to War of the Rohirrim, for me again, is it ignores almost all of the fantastical side of Tolkien's Middle-earth. It truly is just a tale about men, and anyone that is a fan of Lord of the Rings know that the race of men are, for the most part, the most uninteresting race on Middle-earth. Most of them are scumbags. Those that aren't basically have to hide because the scumbag men tribes have kind of taken over and have just made things shit, right? I mean, men, they teamed up with both Morgoth and Sauron. That's just who the race of men are. So War of the Rohirrim lacks all the fantastical stuff. Like there's a wizard at the end that makes a cameo and another one makes a verbal cameo. But really none of that is touched upon. They do a nod to the fact that Sauron had, his forces of orcs out there gathering rings, but it's literally a throwaway 2-second moment. So while it's a good tale, and you do learn how the people of the Rohirrim or Edoras, how Helm's Deep comes to be, or at least how it gets the name Helm's Deep. That's probably the biggest lore nugget you can take from the War of the Rohirrim. You actually get to see why this keep at the Hornburg gets named Helm's Deep. So by the time we see King Theoden marching his people towards it, it's just known as Helm's Deep. It's not known as Helm's Deep in the War of the Rohirrim, but we see how it gets its name. So it's good. I mean, it's got the Lord of the Rings vibe and feel that you love from Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies. I mean, they use Howard Shore's music, so that's correct. But like I said, I would have liked a little more of the fantasy element of Lord of the Rings infused. So I'd probably give it like a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. A little long. I mean, for an anime, it's over 2 hours, so it has that going against it as well. All right, let me get a check in with Nick here. All right, he actually said he's going to be late, so I'll just keep pressing through with stuff I had planned, and we'll get into the Skeleton Crew stuff when he shows up, if he shows up. Hopefully he does, but we shall see. He said he'll be here as soon as he can. All right. So let's talk a little Star Wars, okay? We did a lot of non-Star Wars, but there's always time for Star Wars time, right? That's why we are here in the first place. I love all the new tic-tac-throns and the new emojis being used. So kudos to channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can do so by heading down to the description of this live stream. You get a nice little Darth Vader cat next to your name as a perk, and you get access to custom emojis like Mango, Tic Tac Thrawn, more Kylo Ren, the Golden Vader trophy, and many, many more. So if there's anyone new here, go ahead and check it out. All right. So, got a little Andor story here, and you gamers, it might resonate with you a bit for sure. Because it's the way it's described, it's from a very poignant and standout moment from the Call of Duty franchise. All right. This is coming from Bespin Bulletin, which are usually pretty reliable when it comes to their sourcing and whatnot. But apparently in Andor, and this is going to happen in a scene we actually saw in the sizzle reel. If you remember the sizzle reel from, what was that, D23 or something over the summer, or just recently here in the fall, you can see these stormtroopers like charging down into a town square, and then it kind of cuts out, and then later you see all kind of hell is broken loose. There's a firefight going on, explosions taking place. It's not looking good. Well, according to Bespin Bulletin, this scene of these troopers kind of marching on civilians is what is being described as the No Russians mission from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So if you remember that game, there's a mission, there's an entire level where you are playing in an airport and you're pretty much involved in a massive terrorist plot to strike, I believe, the U.S. And, so obviously it says no Russians. So like, hey, as an asset, don't kill any Russians. We're only going for Americans. And it is just kind of indiscriminate murder. Essentially in the game, the Russian faction, the bad guy, they want to make a point. They want to stick it to the modern warfare forces. And it was a big moment in gaming. A lot of people were writing about it. A lot of people were shocked by it. I remember it to this day. It really was kind of a standout moment in gaming. Made you think a little bit. So apparently in Andor, we are going to get a no Russians type of scene. And it's going to happen in that town square we saw in the sizzle reel. And the way Bespin Bulletin is talking about it here is that essentially this location that we've seen, it's going to have a cafe on one side, and Cassian Andor is going to be sitting in it. There's going to be an alien with a lizard type of creature as a pet, and then possibly a hotel on the other side of this square. And then in the middle, we have these steps. And I guess in front of these steps, we're going to have a group of civilians. And it's not clear if they're protesting or celebrating or whatever, but it's going to be a gathering of civilians. And supposedly, in this no Russian scene in Andor Season 2, stormtroopers will eventually make their way down the steps and then just begin blasting everyone in front of them, killing the civilians, just causing absolute chaos and havoc upon whatever locale that we saw in that sizzle reel. So that could be rough. I mean, to think about, we all look at stormtroopers as idiots, dopes. They can't hit the broadside of a barn door. But to see them doing that type of indiscriminate murder, I think it should be shocking. It should rattle us. And quite frankly, I can't wait to see it. I want to know why. Like, why are they doing this? Did this planet act out? Is this a way to kind of put them back into check? Or, like I said, or were they actively protesting maybe something that came down from the Moff or the governor of the system? But it sounds like we're going to get a pretty jarring scene in Andor Season 2 to remind us that the Empire sucks and that they are willing to do anything to keep the people that want their freedoms suppressed. So I hope this plays out. Like I said, Bespin Bulletin, they're usually spot on with their reviews, leaks, whatever. So I'm all about that. I just wonder, again, why is it? Is it an act of uprising, or is it more, hey, let's make an example of these people for the galaxy, just to remind everyone, like, yeah, we hear about these rebel cells popping up and this supposed alliance is starting to form amongst the rebel cells. Let's remind them who we are, what we can do, and why everyone should shut the F up and just succumb to our rule. All right, so let me check out the chat real quick like we got on that. We got some let's go, Lord Gilroy. Yeah, boy. Who's this? Anthony YouTube saying, hi, man. I really enjoyed episode 4 Skeleton Crew, the world building. I now wonder what exactly made these planetary wonders jewels. By the way, I want two deadly stormtroopers. All right, Anthony, YouTube fan, welcome, buddy. Good to see you. There's Brogu coming in here. Nice to see you, Brogu. We always love to see you in the live stream chat. Like I said, if you are a podcast-only listener of SWTS, you can always find us on the live streams Wednesdays, 5 p. East, youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. All right, so that is that. I guess while I stall even longer to hopefully break down this episode of Skeleton Crew with Young Nick, let's go ahead and do some Ask Us Anythings. There really wasn't a ton, but we did have a few. If you want to get involved in our Ask Us Anythings, you just have to follow us on our socials. So you can do that. On Discord, we post the Ask Us Anything. We post it on YouTube. So if you're a subscriber, if you go to our community page, you'll get the weekly Ask Us Anything. I believe it goes out on Twitter and, of course, Instagram at StarWarsTime.show. You all just have to kind of reply to it. All right. Yeah, everyone can see. Everyone can see Nick is like, yeah, I'm late as hell in our little Skype there. But here we go. Let's go ahead and get the window working over here. All right, now we're ready to rock on all streams. It's our boy Beast Mobile 96. We know him as B-Mad up in the stream chat here. But B-Mad is asking, have you guys played Marvel Rivals yet? Another hero shooter like Overwatch, but has the nerd industry in a chokehold right now. Honestly, B-Mad, I have not. And I don't even know if I knew it existed. So let me pull it up real quick, just so I can get a quick search of it over here. Maybe I'll check out a trailer right quick. Play now, the superhero team-based PvP shooter. All heroes are free to play. Oh boy, I might have to check this out. So it looks like we're on consoles and PC for this Marvel Rivals, and it really does. I mean, it looks just like Overwatch. Holy crap! I mean, it's like a direct rip of Overwatch. Oh, this is cool. Yeah, you know what, B-Mad, I think I'll check it out and maybe report back to you later, if you know what I mean. So I don't know if Nick has played Marvel Rivals. Hey, Nick, have you played Marvel Rivals? No, he's not played Marvel Rivals. He's still working. So good deal, man. I mean, it does look exciting. Who knows when it came out? Is this something brand new, I'm guessing? But I will add that to my gaming to-do list, young B-Mad. All right, B-Mad's saying they're having an absolute blast playing it. If it is like Overwatch, it means it's going to be squad-based, so I'm sure there's roles to play on each team. I mean, it also kind of feels like Star Wars Hunters, which I played for about 2 months straight. I think the first 2 seasons, then I kind of dipped back out to get to some other games like Space Marines 2 and the Finnish FF7 Rebirth. So I'll have to check it out. I'm always down for free to play, if you know what I mean. All right, before we get to another Ask Us Anything, we got Brogu up in the chat, dropping some theories here, saying, I have a theory. Wim's father is not letting on what he knows. I think he's a pirate, and that was his ship, and that his son found. He went to the ship's location looking for his son. What do you think? See, Brogu, there's a lot of people jumping on Wim's dad, Wendell, kind of knowing more about At Attin's mysteries, the supervisor, than the rest, or than what he's letting on. But I don't know. I still think Wendell, the way he looked specifically in episode 3, I still think he's just a shell-shocked dad. He knew to go out to the B-Mad. I'm not pushing the ad button. I promise you. Although I did get this on Beyond the Dune Sea, so I guess this is just what you get when a channel finally gets enough fans and viewers to run ads. But anyways, back to Wendell. Like I said, I really think he's shell shocked. That's why he kind of looked out of it in that meeting of the parents. I don't think he knew anything of the spaceship prior to seeing it raise out of the earth, and that's part of the reason why he is so whacked out. Now, I will give some of you Wendell theory people a bit of credit and love. We still have not specifically heard what Wendell's role is on At Attin. Every other parent, their job has been identified. All right, Fern's mom, Farrah, she's in admin. Neil's parents, they're in analytics or whatever it's called. Same with KB. We never hear Wim say, "Oh yeah, my dad's, he's in analytics too." So that's the only thing that seems a bit odd to me about Wendell. Everything else, I just think it's a dad who just watched his kid fly off in a starship that no one knew was on the planet. I think that's why he's whacked out. You know what I mean? All right, we're getting some other stuff in here. So Grogu is sticking on the father knowing something about the treasure. But bro, you gotta remember, everyone, all the other kids have seen what they're called dataries now. I mean, Neil saw them, Fern saw them, and none of them were like, "Holy shit, where did you get those?" So I really think those Old Republic credits, or dataries as the kid call them, that's just the money. That is the currency of At Attin. All right, I got a question here from Divided. Since we're working on time here, I am going to answer it here. So Divided Skywalker is asking, I have an Xbox Game Pass. Any recommendations for simple gaming? Vampire Survivors, Divided Skywalker. Love that game, and it should still be on Game Pass. If you want more than simple gaming, then I think the new Indiana Jones game hit that platform last week, and I've heard some pretty good things about that. So that's what I would check out if you're on Game Pass right now. Both simple gaming and if you want to get a bit deeper. You know what I'm saying? All right. Bat's saying he works in the admin tower. Maybe the admin tower is something different. I mean, we did learn in episode 4, at least the At Achranns, they call it the Fallen Sanctum. But we do learn from Neil that is the Supervisor's Tower. So I think the Supervisor's Tower is even different from the Admin Tower. I think only the Supervisor gets in the tower unless Bat is on to something and Wendell is allowed into the tower. You know what I mean? Yeah, we'll see. We shall see. But I'm kind of with Big Wood 4717. The ship has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, if not thousands. So if Wendell is the pirate that brought it there, unless the treasure on the planet is life ever giving, then I don't know how that lines up. You know what I mean? Yes, now we're into something. I know we're not into our full breakdown of Skeleton Crew yet, but because we are killing time waiting for young Nick, the fans are popping off on the live stream. Be Mad bringing up the decapitated stat. I believe I was reading somewhere online that what is it? Oh, we just had the stream bomb out. That I guess on At Attin, that statue can be seen, and clearly it's not going to have its head blown off. So yeah, the King No Head, as Wim called him, I'm with you all. I'm not going to sleep on that either. I think that definitely means something, or it could play more into the theory a lot of us have had. And that the Supervisor is like a Wizard of Oz type. So he's kind of a pretender, if you know what I'm saying. You know, someone that is portraying themselves as someone or something greater than they actually are, if that makes sense. So I'm with you there, Be Mad, on the decap statue. That could definitely be problematic. All right, good stuff there. All right. I think we've got some other questions to go to. Let me check over here. Let's go ahead and flop to the next one here. Hey, you know what? We'll stick with the fans. Another theory here from Bat2797 saying the other planets fell into despair, not destroyed. I took it as they were Alderaan. Yeah, Bat, I think a lot of us did. When we learned from Kim that 8 of the 9 jewel planets of the Old Republic were destroyed, I think all of us were instantly just, oh yeah, Death Star, shit's gone. But really, destroyed is just the society, the experiment, if we want to run with that was destroyed. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of with you there, Bat. I too was expecting to see space dust instead of an actual planet. And yes, Brogu, you are right. Neil is kind of copping some of your internet fame. Neil is definitely moving in on the Grogu space. What do you mean audio is off? Oh, well, I don't know what happened. One of the streams bombed out, so if the technical stuff is jacked up, I apologize. not much I can do. One man trying to run a live stream and interacting with people. So if shit is jacked, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe try to pull your stream back up to live. But as always, YouTube these days just seems to crash on us here. Yeah, Bigwood, I think a lot of people are... And you know what, Bigwood? We could already be going to Old Republic planets. I mean, At Attin could very well be Old Republic. At Achrann, At Aytuu, at Arissia, all these could be straight up Old Republic. So, all right, we're getting reports the stream is okay there, bad there. You never know. Sorry, podcast only people. I know this stuff probably gets annoying to you, but we love you all. We're speaking all your names, and I try to cater to as many platforms as possible. All right, so getting into this next question, and I can tell this is probably not serious, but we are going to answer it. So we got Wenceslas Holek. I have horrible pains after brutal tooth removal that took very long time. I have got opioids as painkillers, but it doesn't work much and I'm falling asleep. When it really lowers or stops pain, I am falling asleep. I don't know how to endure such pains. Well, Wenceslas, I'd say get off the opioids and get on to natural remedies like the good old MJ, stuff like that. They also have trigeminal neuralgia, and it both has connected, and I had pains in one half of face, but now both hurt, and my pills against the neuralgia don't work. I am desperately down, and I'm afraid of addiction and pain. Well, don't get addicted, buddy. That's what I'm saying. Move to the natural stuff. We feel for you. So I don't know what the hell that was, but we did say ask us anything. So they asked us anything. You know what I mean? And here we are. All right. So next question here, last question's coming from Mac122198. That's our boy Michael Kramer, who shows up in our Discord. He's a fantastic YouTuber. He's out there dropping comments on all our content. So we appreciate you, Kramer. But he kind of wanted me to get into a bit of a lore dump here. And it's about someone we like to call the Mother. That's right, people. Hey there, Star Wars Order. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, what Mr. Kramer is asking, and I'll do my best to kind of recount what I know about this character, but saying, hey, Matt, can you answer this question on Wednesday instead of my other one? Who is Abeloth? Speaking of questions this week, if they went to Instagram, something is not working there. All right, for whatever reason, the question prompt on Instagram completely bombed out. So I don't know what the heck was going on with that. But we did get some questions. Life is good. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get the... no, you can stay up. Our last question is from Mike here. So they're asking, hey, who is Abeloth and what book series is she a part of in the expanded universe? And do you think she'll be in season 2 of Ahsoka? Well, Mr. Mike, I'm glad you found us because we actually went pretty deep into the Mortis Gods, that arc on the Clone Wars, how that played into Ahsoka Season 1. And then, of course, what was Baylan looking for on Peridia? In particular, when we leave him, he's standing on the father, all right? The father of the Mortis Gods, that's pointing at something in the distance that looks very similar to the pyramid or portal that was featured in the Mortis Gods arc in the Clone Wars. All right, so first off, Abeloth is a freak. She actually started as a regular being. Okay, she had no powers. She was just a basic human, and from my understanding, she was more or less a servant to the Mortis Gods, in particular the father. She bonded with the brother and the sister, I believe, and that's how Abeloth got the name or the nickname the Mother. So we have the father, we had the brother who represents the dark side, the sister who represents the light side, the father again, he is the balance, the chosen one. And then this Abeloth character, like I said, kind of became known as the Mother because she would hang around and help these gods out. Well, she eventually drank from some secret pool of knowledge and life or whatever, and it just absolutely messed her up. and turned her into an evil being that had immense levels of power. So much so, I believe she could not necessarily eat worlds like Darth Nihilus, but she was a world killer. She was a world destroyer, a faction effer, if you will. She was so freaky deaky and really not on any side of the Force that both the Jedi and Sith feared her. In fact, I think they may have teamed up and possibly locked her away. Yeah, as Bango is saying, she is known as the Destroyer, bringer of chaos. She is no good. I mean, she is death reincarnate, essentially. Because I don't read Star Wars words and shit, so I don't know if the Mortis gods themselves locked her up or if the Jedi and Sith were able to lock her up. But in regards to Mike's question about do I think she'll be in season 2, you kind of have to think she is, because the father is gone, the brother is gone, the sister is gone. That all happened in the Clone Wars during that arc. I mean, we saw them all die. So why did Baylan go to Peridea? What was he learning as a youngling when they were telling them these fantastical mythical tales of Peridea and the powers it has? Did they think, is this where Mortis really is? Is this where the gods lived? Is this where Abeloth is imprisoned? You know, is Baylan on Peridea thinking he's going to gain some sort of knowledge and power from the Mortis gods when in fact it could be Abeloth that is leading him there and has been all along to release her upon the galaxy? I believe Nick and I, we hope that is the case, that she is going to be brought in, because that would definitely, obviously canonize another EU/legend character, but it would really flesh out the Mortis gods further, and it would make sense as to why a fallen Jedi would want to go to this planet with the hopes of, if you remember Baylan's goal, it was to restructure essentially the power of the Force, to show what the Jedi Order should have been, to be better than the Jedi. He didn't want to be Sith. He doesn't want to be evil. He kind of wants to remake the Order and make sure it's done right and does the right thing this time around. And, if he thinks the Mortis gods are there, he think maybe they'll give him that power. But like I said, it could be Abeloth all along, kind of leading him there, telling him what he wants to hear, to trap him so he can unleash her. So the book series that Mike is asking about that she is from, I went ahead and looked this up. But Abeloth is the main antagonist in the Star Wars Fate of the Jedi series. I believe there's 8 or 9 novels in this. Obviously, it is no longer canon or ever was canon. But that is Abeloth in a nutshell, if you will, Mr. Kramer. So hopefully that answered everything you are looking for. Hey there, we got a Kevin Castile subscribing. We thank you. We speak your name. Welcome to the club. Hopefully we don't scare you away too soon. All right, so we're coming up almost on the first hour of the show, which means it is time to start sliding over into our Skeleton Crew breakdown. Unfortunately, young Nick still isn't here. I'm going to go ahead and not open Teams, that's for sure. How about open Slack? And see if we got any new messages from the young one. All right, I'll just see if he gets any response, but doesn't look like he's ready yet. So, my friends, I guess that means it's time to get right into it, and we'll just kind of catch up whenever Nick gets here, unfortunately. It happens sometimes when you got a co-host that works in a different time zone, if you know what I mean. We will run into this. Maybe one of these days we'll just bump the start time to 5:30 p. East instead of 5 to possibly cut down on a lack of young Nick. But I'm here, we're having fun, and we're about to talk some Star Wars. All right, so let's go ahead and get everything switched up for those of you on the live stream. Here comes the browser, and there's our buddy Little Neil. This definitely was the Neil episode. It was also the Daniels episode. So if you're fans of the Daniels, the people that did Everything Everywhere All at Once, obviously they've done some other projects, but that is their award-winning project. So this one was called "Can't Say I Remember No At Attin," a line all of us heard spoken many, many times by the fantastically portrayed SM33, who does continue to be a standout in the Skeleton Crew cast. I mean, it's hard to say that Neil doesn't dominate every episode. In fact, he did dominate this episode. This was his episode. He got the most screen time, he got the most dialogue, and really the most character development. But SM33, he's up there too. Love all the kids, love Jod. I mean, we just really still enjoy Skeleton Crew. So I guess while we wait for young Nick, I can give you my review of this episode, which, I'll be frank, I'd love for you to check out my deep dive review, which is now live on youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show. It's close to 10 minutes long. It has a review. I get into some of the theories we'll obviously talk about here on today's live stream. But if you want to get to that now, or if you want to save it for later, maybe when you got your popcorn going, I'd love for you to check that out. But for me, I have to say, friends, this episode was my least favorite so far. That's not to say it was a complete piece of trash, and I hate Star Wars, and I hope Kathleen Kennedy gets fired. I mean, I am so far from those types of feelings. But I would be lying if I told you that at the end of this episode, I was just as juiced up, pumped, jazzed as I was after watching the premiere episodes and then episode 3 last week. So I do feel like something was off. Something was missing in episode 4 for me. And I thought it was the lack of any action, lack of any adventure. We just kind of middled around on this At Achrann planet that we did learn is exactly like At Attin. It just failed and fell into despair, which I guess, as we were talking earlier, I guess that's what it means when the rest of the galaxy thinks they were destroyed. Or, since everything's so secretive and hidden with these 9 jewel planets of the Old Republic, maybe that's the story they told everyone, but they still allowed whatever, at this point, it looks like experiment to keep running. And sadly for the people, the citizens of At Achrann, their experiment did fail, or whatever was happening there. And it looks like without a supervisor and security droids, they descend into conflict, which I thought was a pretty astute point to make. And really, for the first time in this series, I mean, outside of Port Borgo, that we came across a planet that felt very Star Wars correct. It felt Star Wars lived in. Because all we've really known about Star Wars outside of this At Attin experiment, this treasure planet, this mythical, legendary lost planet, is that, most locales in Star Wars always look like they've been touched by some sort of galactic conflict. Things look blown out. Things look old. Things look basic. Things look ashy, smoky, dirty, dank, dark. That's exactly what we got on At Achrann. It feels more like a Star Wars planet. It feels like it has been affected by tragedy and conflict. So it does seem that on these jewel planets, which more and more feel like some sort of social experiment, that if the experiment shits the bed, it's over. I don't know if they pull the plug and the overseers, the overlords, remove the supervisor, remove the security droids, and just say, have at it, kind of like a purge style planet now. But it's quite clear that something went really wrong on At Achrann that has not affected At Attin's way of life yet. So I think that's why this episode was slow, because the writers, the directors, they really took their time to show us the difference between Achrann and Attin, but how Attin's controlled society, its supervisor, its security droids, its barrier, it remaining hidden, it not knowing about the galaxy at large, how that almost benefits the planet and its people in a way and allows them to live peaceful like Neil wants to live. It allows them to live without conflict or to even know what conflict is. I mean, that was some of the more interesting tropes being kind of portrayed in this episode. Is like, if you think about it, these kids have never known conflict or seen war. Coming to this planet had to be a major shock. I mean, it was such a shock to Neil that he was kind of out of it the entire episode. He had no burning desire to learn how to become a warrior like his three other friends. This dude is clearly a lover, not even close to a hater, and will never be a fighter. So I do think the episode slowed down to flesh Neil out a bit more, really develop him as the empathetic one, the caring one, the one that really gets it. Like, hey, why are people fighting? What is the point of conflict? I mean, did you hear his line? I would just say I'm sorry and then try to move forward and be friends and work together. That's not really a perspective you ever get to hear or see in Star Wars. So this episode, while slow, allowed that to kind of come to the forefront here. As Neil did, like I said, I mean, his interactions with Haina and him showing us his riz and how he was able to, by the end of the episode, get himself a smooch. So, I think Neil was done really well in this episode. Fern had a moment for sure. I'll try to find the screenshot, but it's when they're in the fallen sanctum, aka the supervisor's tower. Great acting there by Ryan and Ravi again. A nice little scene between kids, and you're kind of getting like, you know what? These kids are starting to being lost is really starting to affect them. As strong as Fern has tried to bend, she wants to be the captain. She's making all the decisions. It's really starting to weigh on her. She feels like she's letting her team down. And Wim's like, don't worry, we got this. We're still alive, right? Like, you're not a failure. So this episode, dialogue heavy for sure. A good amount of character development. It lacked action for the most part outside the end. And it kind of lacked that we're on an adventure type of feel that has been very prominent in the previous 3 episodes. So, like I said, not my favorite. Not bad by any means. But not as exciting, not as head-scratching, not as theory-crafting enabling as I have found the other 3 episodes. All right, let me take a break here, get a check on the live stream here. We got some stuff coming in from B-Mad. B-Mad's asking, is it just me, or does this episode give you Fallout vibes, like how the bunkers were each doing their own excitements? I'm guessing he meant experiments. Yeah, B-Mad, I've seen that a lot from other fans, like, hey, this is very vaulty, where each vault was kind of doing its own thing and they didn't know what's happening on the other vault. That could be the case. The only thing here that I find is odd is that it's made abundantly clear, even through Neil when they're on the roof of the school, that At Achrann is designed picture perfectly to how At Attin is designed. So you have to wonder if all 9 jewels of the Old Republic, these planets that have been talked about as being legendary, and I mean, hell, they're called jewels. At Attin's known as the lost planet of eternal treasure. Were they just a social experiment? Whereon everyone, or how are the planets themselves generated somehow? Who knows? I doubt it. But how do you have 2 planets, both from space, because remember the kids were flying in, right? They're flying in next to these satellites, and they sure as hell thought it was At Attin. Even when they broke the atmosphere and they saw all the homes, they thought it was At Attin. So if you're not creating these jewel planets somehow, why do they look identical, both topographically but also demographically? if you notice some other things here, especially when they're in the bombed out homes, they have all the same murals that we saw in Fern's mother's home. They have a lot of the same alien species that we saw were only on At Attin, such as the Ithorians and Rhodians. So it does seem like, for whatever reason, be it in the old Republic or just the Republic, this great work we've been hearing about was potentially to create the perfect society. And once something went wrong or fell out of place in one of these curated societies, controlled societies, they just let it run its course. They're like, oh, okay, well, this failed on At Achrann, so good luck. Let's see what you all turn into. And as we saw, the At Achrans, they became a warring society, a faction-based society. We didn't see any factions on At Attin, right? There's no Hattans or Hattans. There's no Troiks. Where those names even come from? I looked it up. I mean, there's like Troikas in Star Wars and like a Troik system. Hatton's nothing. So it's like once the experiment failed on At Achrann, they're like, all right, we're out. Let's see what happens. We don't really care. We're not going to invest any more time, money, resources into this thing. We're just going to count it as destroyed. It has failed. So let's move on to the next one, or let's go check on At Attin and make sure it's still doing okay. So I don't necessarily think the jewel planets all have a different experiment. Maybe they all had the same experiment, and for one reason or the other, it failed miserably on 8 of the 9 planets. At Attin was the only one that was able to get it to stick and actually have the utopia kind of pay off and come into fruition, all the way to the point where this experiment is still working. These people still don't know what has been happening outside of their planet's atmosphere for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Matt Palanca coming in, agreeing. Wasn't my favorite episode either. Didn't really have that adventure vibe. Yeah, Matt, I think that's what was missing for me. Everything else was tip top. You know, this episode, just because I didn't love it, didn't mean it turned into hot garbage. I mean, I think it still looked great. The score was still awesome. The pacing was done right. The character moments were memorable. There was just something missing. There was like an air missing from this episode. You know, I don't want to say it bummed me out. I just didn't feel like, whoa, I can't believe what I just saw. I mean, yeah, the end when we got our lore itch scratched. When they made it to the Fallen Sanctum, yeah, that was exciting. But getting to that point, a lot of character moments, a lot of dialogue, just a lot of plotting around. So that's my overly long review of episode 4, because it's just not looking like young Nick's going to be here anytime soon. He's already about 30 minutes beyond his mark. So here we go. So not the best episode. Definitely far from bad Star Wars. It's just kind of missing that punch that these other Skeleton Crew episodes have been working towards. Now that I'm looking at King No Head here, I do need to take a deeper dive into this and start scanning episode 1 in particular to see if we can find this statue. It looks very humanoid. He's shaking a hand. I think there's a clear reason the head is missing. That could be a giveaway. I mean, is it a robot head? Is it Wendell's head, as some of you are saying? Is it Hondo's head, right? Maybe Hondo's the pirate. He traveled back in time, crashed the Cinder on At Attin, took it over, installed a supervisor so no one would ever find his treasure, and then he could leave and become the Hondo we know him to be. Again, that's just a joke, but you never know. All right, so I guess the best way to do this while we wait for Nick, if he is ever going to show up. See, even B-Matt in the chat saying, that's Wim's dad. I love you guys. Who knows? Who knows what it is? But what we're going to do here, we're going to start going through some of this episode's top moments, Easter eggs, references. We'll try to get all that out of the way. And then maybe Nick will show up. If not, guess what? whoever's left in the live stream chat with me, you are going to be my partner this week for the ha moments. If you're new here, we usually have two people. We'll both give our quick review. We go through the top moments. We go through eggs and references. We theory craft throughout. But then we have what are known as the ha's. And these are little notes I will take as I'm watching an episode of new Star Wars that they just seem curious to me. And you know, maybe young Nick will have a theory based on one of them, or maybe even today the live streamers will, because I'm going to need you, because it doesn't seem like young Nick's getting here anytime soon. And the intern just hit me up. He said, yeah, not the best episode, but still loving the series. So that seems to be the case. I saw some other creators were like, oh my God, this show is still the best. It's everything. I'm like, you know what? That's their opinion, and they're allowed to have that. So let's get into some top moments, if you will. And unfortunately, this week, I only really had a moment. I had a top moment. One could argue that young Neil was the top moment, kind of like last week, how Jod was kind of the top moment. Young Neil had a lot of great scenes, delivered a lot of good dialogue, had even better facial reactions. I mean, did we all see this little guy's snout shaking as they were hiding in that bombed out bus? Yes, it was the bus. You could see the RX driver there. But yeah, I mean, Neil all around this episode was great. It was great. Their performance was great. The physical performance, or I don't know if they do that CG or if that's actually animatronics in the face there, but he's on that bus and he's shaking, but instead of his body shaking, it's his little trunk going like flipping around like you know what. So love this guy, love Neil. He definitely was the star of the episode. But the top moment I really want to get to, it's not that he, turned down learning how to become a warrior, or his awesome little chat with Hannah on the rooftop. I mean, that look at that shot of those two from behind them. They're just sitting there on the edge of the school. Beautiful stuff there by the Daniels. But that's not the top moment either. Not him essentially calling himself a weakling. Not that either. Not him being scared shitless to be a lead scout for these pussy adults, these troik that require kids to be their fighters. No, the moment I am talking about is not even his first kiss. I know. Or his look after that first kiss. Look at that stud, my friends. If you're not on the live stream, you can always look at our stills on StarWarsTime.net. Just check out the breakdown post for whatever particular episode of Skeleton Crew you're looking for stills. But he was mesmerized by his first kiss. And Bat's right. He got a little action beyond the kiss. There was an earlier scene where Hannah literally drags him by his trunk, which I would say might be somewhat offensive to an elephant race, right? I mean, that's got to be offensive to an elephant race of people if you lead them around by their trunk. I mean, that'd be no different than me grabbing young Nick down in his crotch and saying, hey, come with me, pal, pulling on his taffy down there. So I'm gonna go ahead and stand up for Neil and say no more touching the trunk. That's for Neil and Neil only, maybe his family, and maybe his significant other. Otherwise, hands off, okay? That's borderline rape, which happened to Neil, okay? Borderline rape. But anyway, so you're sitting there going, well, what the hell was Neil's top moment? If it's not the kiss, not the trunk grabbing, not the trunk quivering, not his awesome words of wisdom for a little kid that knows more about how people should act around each other than our own world leaders in the real. Nay, it's none of those. It's when this little weakling finally does get a little courage and stands up to SM-33 with a rock chuck to the dome and tells him to leave his friends alone. I I love that moment. I mean, first it was a frantic moment because we had SM just go insane. We had those awesome looking snorri cam shots where they literally strapped the camera to the puppet to get those weird looking chaotic, this bot has turned into a demon look. It was great. Neil, he's just sitting there like, hey buddy, what are you going to do about it? Look at this guy. He goes from being called a weakling and being weak, and he could never live on At Achrann because he could never be a fighter. He could never be in Haina's tribe because he's not strong enough. Lo and behold, here he is. So apparently, getting a little spit on his snout gave this little guy way more confidence than he even knew he could have. He takes on a crazed SM-33, and luckily for Jod, with an expert tackle, by the way. I mean, Jod could play in the Galactic NFL if it was a thing. Neil was saved, but it was such an ordeal. The poor little guy passed out, and that is where the episode ended. So quite a cliffhanger here. I think it kind of plays into a few things with these live action Star Wars shows. First, the fact that we only get 30 minutes of content makes it tough, especially for an episode like this where there is a lot of dialogue to kind of move things along. So I'm guessing in episode 5, we get right to possibly picking up right after Neil passes out. They have to still be on At Achrann unless they just get on the Cinder and head towards the next At planet, which I will be getting to here in a bit. All right, let's see what the chat's up to here. We got League coming in with Neil got a new crush. I wonder what his At Attin crush might think about it. That's a good point, because if you remember, and I don't think she knows, but Neil made it clear to Wim and us as the audience that he has the hots for Runa. She was that green-looking, furry, quasi-owl, big-eye creature that we saw in his class, I believe, in episode 1. He was just sitting there staring at her like, oh, he had those puppy dog eyes. You could see Cupid firing multiple rounds of his arrows into him. He was madly in love with Runa. And, ladies, as it always goes, it's a man's world. When the next best thing comes along, Neil is quick to drop his feelings for young Runa and clearly sprung a little bit of a chub for Haina, the cousin of Hey Now, who opens this lovely little show each week. All right. Neil pulls a Neville Longbottom. Yeah, you know what, Laura Thane, that's a pretty good point. I mean, I think I get the reference you're making. I mean, it's essentially, if it's not for Neville at the end of Harry Potter, Voldemort wins, right? I mean, I believe Neville kind of plays a big role in helping to take him out, possibly holding one of the Horcruxes. I don't remember. I need to probably rewatch the Potters at some point. But yeah, I do see Neil. Neil, in the end, I do think is going to be the ultimate savior. Nick and I, we first speculated in our prediction show for Skeleton Crew that Neil may be a Force user. Last week, I kind of leaned towards, what if it's KB? What if the reason she has a visor is to temper her Force powers, because she is growing up on this weird, controlled, social experiment-esque planet called At Attin. They definitely don't want a Force user on there, so they'd strap the visor on her to essentially keep her Force powers muted. But Neil was our original call as potentially having the Force and having a huge impact on this story, Lord of Thane. So I could see that. I mean they kind of set Neil up in this episode in particular to be the one that is going to be the hero. And I don't think they're going to sacrifice Neil. So Neil Nation, back up. I'm not calling for Neil's death. But I do think Neil is probably going to experience the most overall growth of the kid characters. And he's going to come out a whole different Elephant Man in the end. And this change very may well be what's going to allow him to save the day where previous Neil 1.0, would have failed. So I don't mind that theory, Lord of Thane, with Neil kind of channeling Neville from Harry Potter. All right, so let's kick around into some of the eggs and references. There really wasn't a lot, which is kind of a change up for this series, which has had a ton of eggs and references, especially in the premiere episode. But there were a few. Some of them not even within the Star Wars universe, that's for sure. And that kind of starts us off with the first one here. I don't know if anyone caught this, but we all probably had to do it in, I'm guessing, 3rd or 4th grade. But when Jod is pilfering through the kids' knapsacks, their book bags, just dumping all their shit out, because, again, he has been role reversed. Hopefully we realize that in this episode. Jod clearly not in control anymore. He does have to follow the kid Captain Fern. SM-33 ensures this through the babysitting protocol, which was quite amusing, where, the kids are like, hey, you stay on the ship, us kids, us adults, which was fitting because we did learn on At Achrann the kids are treated like adults. So that just shows you how smart this show is with its writing and editing, the way they kind of layer that stuff in. But anyways, as Jod is being babysat by SM-33, get in here, baby. He's going through the kid's shit, looking for God knows what. Clearly, he steals Wim's cash. But if you missed it, as he's done... hold on, people. Here he comes. I'll be right back to this point, but we got to bring him in. I know I was riffing, but if we don't get him in here soon, I'm pretty sure my head's going to fall off. And he's here. All right. Oh, dude, we are knee deep into it. I've already given my review, and we finished the top moments. I was just wrapping a point. I actually was just getting into the eggs and references, so perfect timing. Let me go ahead and bring you onto the stream. There he is, everybody, as promised. Start throwing out your dollar bills, y'all. Young Nick is here. All right, man, let me wrap this point real quick, and then we'll circle back to your impressions of this episode. Then we'll just get right back into it, all right?
Okay. Sounds good.
So we're getting into the Easter eggs and references, my friend, and the first one I brought up is actually a real world reference that I believe every American kid probably has had to explore in their early lives. I was thinking 3rd or 4th grade. But as Jod is being a shithead and going through their bags, he's dumping out all this stuff. You see a recorder pop out. One of those little plastic flute things that we all had to play. Like I said, mine was, I believe, was in 3rd grade. Did you guys do the recorder, Nick, in Louisiana?
Oh, yeah, we did for sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what grade we did it in, but we definitely did it.
Yeah, so I thought that was a nice touch. It goes to show you, again, the care that the creators are putting into this, the prop masters are putting into this. They're like, hey, we got a story about kids that are very well, could be 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. What would they have in their backpacks after school? A recorder. So I like that, as well as a fat sack of dataries, as Wim calls them as well. You know what, dude? Let's just get through eggs and references, and then we'll get your thoughts, and then we can haw it out and really bro off on some speculations. All right?
Sounds good.
Okay, so because there was barely any eggs and references, just like there was only one top moment. Next one here should have been clear for everyone, even though they look a bit different on At Achrann. But we got Obi-Wan Kenobi's favorite space beast in the Opie. These Opies, though, Nick, while also being described as smelly, these ones, unlike the ones we've seen on Tatooine, seem to have horns. Now, maybe that's just how Opies are, depending on what planet they're on. They could look different. If some of our own animals can have different looks. But we did have some Opies, and they're quite important to this society. I mean, they use their hides to trade for munitions with off-worlders. Hopefully everyone picked up on that, because one of the other references might make you go, well, wait, the Empire's been here. But no, we've got you covered. So we got some Eopies. What else do we have in our references? This one might be a me thing. Let me hear what the rest of you think, starting with young Nick. But Nick, when we saw the Hattans come through on their tank, first and foremost, it sounds just like the CIS or the Separatist AAT, so the battle droid tanks, right?
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling too when I saw it at first. It looked very familiar to say the
okay,
least,
so you got it too. Not only they sounded identical, but I also wrote in my notes that they also look kind of the same. I mean, they look. This one in particular looks like a turret jammed on top of a tank that hovers. So I kind of wrote that one down there. It looks like the fans are agreeing with me, so I'll take it. Bango saying definitely looked like a droid tank. All right, I got it. Like I said, none of these really blew me away here. And then we got the last one. And this is one I just want to make sure everyone is on the up and up. Mm-hmm. But clearly these people, both the Troiks and the Hattans, have what look like Imperial mud trooper helmets. All right. In fact, one of the guys in the Troiks, the dude that was leading the column, he had the full kit on. He had the mud trooper helmet, the mud trooper goggles. So before anyone starts going, well, holy shit, the Empire's been here. You got to remember what General Strick said early on. He said, we don't deal with off-worlders outside to trade for munitions. Hide for munitions. So, Nick, it seems, at least these people on At Achrann, they still seem kind of hidden away from the galaxy, but not completely invisible to off-worlders. Or maybe they leave their planet because they know they can leave it now because, there's clearly no supervision here. But it does seem that these people can get shit from the Imperial era in their munition trading, right? I mean, that's how they got these helmets.
Yeah, it's what it seems like. I mean, it's really interesting to see this planet in comparison to At Attin, and obviously I think that, we're probably going to see some of the other lost jewel planets if they're not truly destroyed, because obviously this one is not.
Bad brought that up earlier, Nick, and I felt the same way. I think we all kind of figured they were Death Starred, right? When Ken said they were destroyed, we're like, okay, well they're fucking asteroids in space right now, but no. Destroyed could have meant they just fell into despair because whatever experiment was happening on these planets wonked out. Didn't go right. So, the destroyed part of it is clearly not true, or at least is being interpreted a different way than we intended it to be. I think the big question when we first heard that was like, could they even fully destroy planets like that back in the Old Republic? And as far as I know, there wasn't like a planet cracker device or anything like that similar to Death Star back in the Old Republic days. And for us to see At Achrann in the state that it's in, it's a little bit more clear that like maybe destroyed doesn't mean destroyed in the more typical sense that we're used to in Star Wars. Yeah, I think that's. But it makes sense that people not in the know would think they're destroyed, because if you are in the know. And let's say that this was just one big experiment of 9 planets trying to get a utopia. You're not going to let anyone else know what you're up to. You're always going to want to kind of keep that secret sauce hidden. So, the 9 Jewels of the Republic, they're all fucking are destroyed except for the lost planet of eternal treasure. Don't worry about the rest of the shit. Psst, by the way, we've just left people living on there in like some crazy society, Lord of the Flies type of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the next planet will look like, because obviously we can't just go straight back to At Attin yet. It's just not in the cards.
Dude, I mean, we got hit with so many little reveals at the end. As I was watching, I was writing my notes. I was like, ooh, it looks like it was Slash with a lightsaber. Then SM33 is like, oh, I did it. I was like, okay, well, that takes care of that. I don't have to guess that anymore. And we'll get there, but let's go ahead and let's rewind this shit. Because I've been talking for about an hour and a half straight. I need to take a breath. But we also need to hear what young Nick felt about this episode. Nick, I'll give you just a quick rundown on mine. Definitely my least favorite. Something felt a bit off. Still found the production value, the acting, the character development, the music, the world building, the mystery dripping to be great. Just something felt off for me. So how did you feel about episode 4 of the S Crew?
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I feel like this was the most kiddie episode, and that's probably why it felt off, at least to me. Like, it was the one that felt most like, oh, this show is 100% made for children. And it was just like, all like, you spent the most time with the kids in this episode. You were introduced to more kids in this episode. The adults definitely felt like they were like, oh, there are adults here and we have to deal with the adults. So it definitely felt like an episode that was more geared towards kids than any of the other ones previously. And it also didn't have, like you were mentioning, there weren't as many eggs and references as other episodes. And I feel like that also fed into this one feeling a little bit less exciting than the others. Because even though in the others we were spending a lot of times with the kids as well, there were a lot of things for like older Star Wars fans to really dig into and really have a lot of connection with. And on this episode, there wasn't as much because we're on a planet that nobody's ever been to. We're dealing with children on this planet in addition to the children that we're dealing with from the main cast. And then there's just a lot of like surrounding mystery. So not a lot to feed off of if you're just like an old school Star Wars fan. Also, like the episode itself was just very gray. And I mean that in terms of its presentation. Like the whole planet was pretty gray.
Like Jod said, it tastes ashy on here like my home planet.
Yeah. So like where in previous episodes, you're used to seeing like the urban landscapes of At Attin, or you're used to like the hustle and bustle that's going on Port Borgo, or a lot of things that are happening on the ship that feels more dynamic. And this one didn't feel like there was a lot of dynamicism in the episode. It was just very much like, it was very conversation heavy, and there wasn't a lot of action that was happening. So I still enjoyed it for the mysteries that were to be revealed, like we saw with the locations of all the other jewel planets that were revealed in the supervisor's tower. The fact that At Attin that Smee has been to At Attin, and he was specifically ordered, even if he was ordered by another captain, to never say anything about At Attin or to give up any details about that planet.
Can't say remember no At Attin, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't remember it until he can remember it, and even when he can't tell you.
Dude, he's the best, man.
I do love that character. So overall, it wasn't my favorite episode of the show, but it definitely is here to like lead us along a path of other mysteries that we will now find. And I think if they follow the path of like, okay, well, we can't get to At Attin clearly because their coordinates have been scraped away. The next logical step is like, okay, well, we have the coordinates to all the other ones, so let's write them down. And then now we have a list of places to go that could get us back home. Mm-hmm. So my assumption from here is that's kind of where we're going to go. It's like, okay, well, let's go down the list. Which one do we want to go to next? At Arissia, let's go there. See if there's a supervisor tower there that has the At Attin coordinates to it.
So yeah, you're kind of with me then, and we're not setting up our predictions for next week though, but we are. It's time to start getting into the Haas as promised. Nick is here. I've gone through, probably said too much. Now it's time to start drilling into the nitty gritty, really getting into the theory, starting to craft some new shit, weave the path of the characters moving forward. So Nick, let's just. I want to riff on something you just talked about, because I'm kind of with you. Like, all right. It seems it's abundantly clear now, at least to me, that Achrann and Attin are identical, right? Top to bottom. Same structures in the same spot, same homes, and probably had the same mission. I mean, if you're in early on when they go to one of the bombed out homes, you can see that the murals are in there, all the same shit that we saw on At Attin. Neil himself identifies the school. We're on the roof of the school. He's like, holy shit, you guys got a big gun up here. And by the way, don't sleep on that big gun. I have a feeling that her showing him was not just for fun. I think that's going to come back into play when they actually make it to At Attin, and they may need to defend themselves. So you heard it here first.
Yeah.
But anyways, he's up there. He's like, oh yeah, shit. See that building? That's where my mom works. That's where I'm going to get a job by the supervisor when I get out of school. So are we thinking then, Nick, that all 9 of these jewel planets are essentially clones of each other?
Yeah, at least in terms of structure. And what it really comes down to now is like, what were the experimentation parameters, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah, was it the same on each planet, or did they tweak the variables on each one? You know what I mean? Because that's what you would do if you're gonna. Typically, if you're going to do an experiment, Nick, you wouldn't just do the same thing 9 times, right? You would have a hypothesis, and you'd be like, well, I'm going to try this variable here, but I'm going to tweak the variable over here. So what do you think?
Exactly.
Do you think we had some differences then, and that's why Achrann is a fucking nightmare zone?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that is of note is that the only species of people that we met on At Achrann are human.
Well, if you were looking, Nick, on the roof in particular, you can see an Ithorian and a Rhodian, but the humans definitely seem to outnumber the other jewel world species we've identified.
Yeah, and it seems like the Ithorian is like the leader of the Hattans as well. So I wonder if it is like I wonder if the experiment is around like races on a planet, like, what species you can have on a planet and how do they interact with each other, and then how does the power structure kind of play its way out from there.
Yeah, or like, hey, our supervisor will allow these people to drive without a rail system, or our supervisor will allow a starship to come every once a year, or hey, let's just leave a blaster somewhere on this planet and see what happens. Maybe it turns them into a war culture. All right, okay. So then, I do, and the other question I have for you, and we get it early on, and damn it, so many questions now that he's here. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, when they come out of hyperspace, they identify At Achrann as their planet. They're like, oh shit, there it is. We found it. We got all
looks exactly the same.
Yeah. So, Nick, were the planets themselves created? Because how do you stumble upon 9 different planets that are exactly the same, both, as I said this earlier, both topographically, demographically, and geographically?
Yeah, I know that. I mean, one of the huge things that never really gets talked about in Star Wars, but happens, is terraforming. Like, they terraform planets in Star Wars to make them livable for
so
human
that
races.
wouldn't be too far out of the realm for Star Wars, that some faction or the great work was literally to create 9 identical planets and conduct a social experiment on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the way that I'm leaning right now, because it is like basically identical aside from the destruction that's taken place on At Achrann. Like, it has to be that they either found a system where there were worlds that were uninhabited and they terraformed them and used this system to to set up these experiments, or they, maybe there were 9 planets outside of not in the same system that were uninhabited, and then they just decided to terraform them all in the same way and see, like, will they develop in the same fashion if they're in different systems? There's a lot of open questions still, but yeah, I think what ended up happening was whether the planets were created whole cloth, which I have no idea if that's even possible, given what you would need to do that, or if whoever set up this experiment just found 9 planets and terraformed them all the exact same way, built the exact same buildings, and then was running this experiment to see what small changes would do to affect society in certain ways.
I definitely think in some capacity. I mean, if you really want me to get far out, what if At Attin's eternal treasure is the fact that it can create life? What if it can spawn a planet? What if At Attin, its big secret, its treasure, is it can shit out a planet? Can clone itself, essentially. That would be worth protecting. That'd be worth hiding for thousands of years, potentially. People would want that. That'd be one hell of a treasure or an asset.
Yeah, for sure.
But
that would be super interesting.
You do have to wonder, if they look so identical, even from space, even in the atmosphere. Because remember, the kids are like, oh, look, we're home. There's the fucking neighborhoods. Yay. And then they land. They're like, oh, shit. I mean, at one point, Wim thought they were asleep for 100 years, and At Attin just decayed. So to me, it does seem like, all right, whatever this great work is, whoever was truly in control of it, they were like, we need 9 identical locations. Everything's going to be the same. We're going to drop the same races on there. Maybe we'll tweak the races. Maybe we'll tweak some of the formula. But for the most part, we're going to see which one lasts and what it turns into. And hopefully we do find a utopia, because to me, that would be a pretty great work if you're, even if we're talking early Republic, you still would have been coming off of thousands of years of conflict with the Sith. And then, if we're approaching the High Republic, we got more conflict with the Nihil. They're probably trying to figure out, how can we, as Neil is saying, why are we fighting, motherfuckers? I would just go say, I'm sorry. Let's clear the air. Like, maybe the whole point, this whole great work, was to create this utopia, to spread it across the galaxy, and once and for all get rid of the warring that has ravaged the galaxy since the dawn of time, dawn of the Jedi, whatever you want to say.
Yeah. I'm super interested. Like, even though this episode wasn't my favorite in terms of like the content in the episode, I think that it sets up a lot of really interesting pathways for the show to go on for the rest of its run. Because now it's like, okay, now we know that there are identical planets. There are probably 8 identical planets, and there are probably experiments happening on them. So now it opens up the question of like, okay, what was the experiment on each different planet? Because for At Achrann, it could be that they allowed off-world ship travel to come in, and that didn't happen on At Attin.
Right.
At Attin is completely locked down. So was it the outside influence of off-worlders coming into At Achrann that caused society to downfall faster, or that caused the downfall of society? Because like you were mentioning, if the base level experiment, or if the control group is At Attin and the control group is no one in, no one out, no weaponry. But on At Achrann, they're like, okay, we'll allow off-world ship trade. By default, the planet has no weaponry on it, but you have off-worlders coming in. They bring weapons with them. They cause strife and conflict. Did the off-world trading, was that a part of the testing for At Achrann? And what are the test variables for the other ones? So I am more in, like, this episode definitely opened up a lot of intrigue for me, just to see, like, okay, when we go to the next one, like, what's the fucking deal there? Did they all live underwater? Like, what's the experiment here? Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, as we're saying, Nick, if they do, and here's all the names, because I'm sure people aren't like me that write this shit down and have captions on, but we now know 6 of the 9 jewel planets. Okay, At Attin, that was our original. Now we got At Achrann, there's 2. We got At Aytuu, At Arissia, At Aravin, and At Acoda. So they have at least 4 other at planets to go check out if they so choose to. And I'm with you. I mean, it makes the most sense. I mean, the episode ended. They're still in the Fallen Sanctum. They do have coordinates. They at least had coordinates to At Aytuu. So why not go that way? Because there's nothing for them on Achrann. That's been cleared up. I mean, unless Neil wants to stay and try to make hybrid elephant babies with Hana, there's no reason to stay there anymore. So, I had a thought here. Yeah, a lot of the fans, and we talked about this earlier. I'm sure you might feel the same way, but it's almost like these planets are fallout vaults, right, Nick? And each one kind of has a little different social tweak to its experiment to see what happens. And I do. I mean, I ultimately think the mantra of this great work was to find the perfect society. And it's clearly, it's an evil experiment overall, just like Fallout is, if you think about it. I mean, whoever's doing this probably isn't doing it to be good or nice. They're more than likely doing it for nefarious reasons. So, we shall see. I mean, is At Aytuu, will it look identical? One would have to think so. I mean, Nick, you got to wonder. I mean, At Achrann, they've probably been devolved or in this decrepit society for decades, if not 100 years, because there was no security droids. I mean, I was scanning through the Rebel. I mean, there was nothing.
Yeah.
They called, we learned the tower, that is the supervisor tower, but on planet now, they call it the Fallen Sanctum.
Yeah.
So maybe they'd never even had a supervisor. Maybe on Achrann, it was more religious in nature, how they were being controlled. Fallen Sanctum, this, that, and the other thing. So there should be more towers on these planets, so logically they should go there to look for them, but who knows what they will find or what state the planet may be in. Do you think, Nick, they will find one of these Ats that have been named and it is completely gone and that just checks that one off the list? Or
I mean, maybe so. Like I said, they have all the coordinates that they can now go to. So, it's very possible that they pop into one of the coordinates and then, this planet's just not here anymore. And it was destroyed.
Well, the other thing you have to wonder, if 6 of the planets were listed, the other 3 probably had to be in there too, right? They just, for time and editing, they just
left those out. But here's another interesting thing to bring up, and I'm not sure if you guys have talked about it. If there are all of the coordinates to the other jewel planets in this supervisor's office, you can guarantee that they are there in At Attin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Which also means that whoever is running At Attin knows that this is an experiment, knows of the other jewel planets, and knows that, we know that we're supposed to be under the guise of nobody in, nobody out. Whoever runs that planet knows that there are other planets out there and that there are starships out. Like they're not as clueless as the people who live and work on it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's why some people are still pointing to Wim's dad, Wendell, might know more than he's letting on. And listen, I still think he's shell-shocked as a dad watching a spaceship rise from the Earth. But I did make a point earlier. So far, every kid's parent's job has been identified but Wim's. Like, it's very clear. Fern's mom's in admin. Everyone else, they're in, what do they call it? Analytics or something. Wim has never said, my dad does that too. What's his dad doing? Why is he in these meetings getting reviews and being pulled out so he can go bust his kid at school? So I'm still not completely on the Wendell is up to no good, but he may, like Nick is saying, and for sure, the supervisor, the Wizard of Oz, the AI overlord, they 100% know what they are taking part in. And if it is one of the humans that live there, shame on them. Like, how fucked up are they that they are willingly taking place and keeping this very communistic society running by buying into the ruse and inflicting the ruse upon everyone else? Yeah.
And it's so hard to believe that it's a sentient race that's the supervisor, because however long this experiment's been going on and however long this planet's been going around, you would have to pass it along. Like you couldn't have one being be the supervisor the whole time unless they have an incredibly long lifespan. So unless
they'd have to be a fucking Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. And even in that instance, if we want to assume that this experiment has been going on since Old Republic times, that still outlives Yoda's lifespan, right? Like Yoda was 900 years old. This experiment could be going on for 1,000 years or longer. Yeah,
Bango. I mean, I don't know if you ever had Silo, but you could have like a lineage of supervisors. But I still think Bango. I think the meat bags kind of do have to buy in, but it's sounding more and more like whatever is controlling this thing probably is not fully sentient.
Yeah, it's not like an organic life form. Right. It's probably, like you said, an AI or like a
that an organic probably created and gave it its mission, but the OG like, supervisor very well. And we're going to talk about this guy. I want to hear who you think it might be. The OG supervisor, or the one in control of all this, very well could be King No Head. I don't know if you picked up on that, Nick, but they come across a statue. And like this episode goes out of its way to show it, to talk about it, to show the people shooting its head off like they hate it on Achrann. Is King No Head the creator of this social experiment?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. What's interesting is that the kids did not recognize this. Like,
right.
I don't know how far, I don't know how far along the society goes in At Attin? Like, does it cover the whole planet? Is there only a specific region of the planet that is inhabited? And if so, why wouldn't they have been like, oh, this looks like a statue that we've seen before? Because clearly everything else in this area they've recognized. Like you were saying, Neil recognizes the building that his mom works in. They recognize the supervisor's tower. They recognize the parks that they were that they were in when they first landed, but they don't recognize this statue. So I wonder if this is not in place on At Attin, or if this is just something that they've never seen before.
Yeah,
on At Attin.
It maybe the statues posed differently, or maybe because it doesn't have their head. But you would think, I mean, if they've seen a statue with an arm outreached, head or not, they would know. So yeah, I do think you have a good point. But there's a good chance my dumb ass is going to go back through episode 1 and scrub through some of the city scenes to see if we can find it. You bet your ass I'll waste my life doing that.
Can find a statue. Yeah.
All right, so we talked about King No Head here. Other theories then from this the Fallen Sanctum. I mean, I think we kind of nailed the whole idea. I mean, I like how that it was slowly revealed that SM-33 knows way more than he lets on, or that he's allowed to let on. I love that he was the one that was like, hey, we're on At Achrann, you idiots. You didn't know that? And it's just like, okay, well, that clarifies some things. 'Cause when I first saw them land, I'm like, holy shit, this looks identical to At Attin. Is this just a different form of it? And then we get the exposition. He clearly was there before with his crew, the captain. He knew of the Hattans. He knew of the Fallen Sanctum. He knew he was the one that scraped At Attin's coordinates off the pole. So I guess, why did the captain keep him alive in the first place? Like, hey, don't wipe your memory, or you don't remember anything about this. I mean, that's a pretty big loophole for a captain that clearly knew enough to make it all the way to At Achrann, and knew to get into this Fallen Sanctum to look for the coordinates for At Attin. Got him, wanted no one else to find them. Why the fuck do you keep a droid alive? So could SM-33 potentially be captain?
Be the captain? I mean, he definitely could be, for sure. Also, the way that things seem to have ended on the Onyx Cinder probably didn't give the captain a whole lot of time to like deactivate the droid. He may have been stabbed in the back, and then everything that went down from there went down.
Well, yeah, because we learned, right? SM-33 is like, hey, once Captain figured out those coordinates, he had me scrape them, and then we basically killed everyone else that saw them.
Yeah, so like...
And it does... So, Nick, do you think it was just 33 and the captain on the planet, and the pirates were hanging out in the Cinder? Then when they got back, they're like, oh yeah, guys, we got it. And then that's why there's this mutiny on the ship that we see with all the dead skeletons? Because I didn't see any bodies in this room, so it's not like they murdered everyone there. Do you think they waited until the ship and took them all out then? Or is SM-33 truly one in the same?
I was going to say, it's more leaning towards now that SM-33 was probably the captain of the Onyx Cinder. Yeah. And like is now... He wants to playing this role of not remembering things or whatever.
He forced himself to forget because he realized, like, hey, At Attin's being ran by my own kind. It's being ran by the machines.
So it definitely could be that, there's, like you said, there was no evidence of death in this chamber. Granted, however long ago that happened, those bodies could have been moved. They could have been cleaned up. Clearly, the residents of At Achrann go to this place because the girl knew how to take them here. So it could just be that whatever happened here was disposed of since. But it seemed like what's weird about the At Attin, about the Onyx Cinder stuff, is that like whatever happened had to have happened close enough to the planet for the ship to crash there.
Well, I'm thinking they finally made it. The crew's probably like, oh, Hardy, you did it. And that's when the mutiny starts. Like the captain's like, fuck you, you guys are going to die. They turn on him. they come crash landing in. The weird thing, like Nova's saying, though, is like, why was SM-33 deactivated on the door lever? Was he trying to keep people in? Was he trying to open it? Did the real captain get off? I mean, many moons ago, one of my odd theories is like, well, maybe the real captain got off and they're the one that started all this shit with supervisors too. Because, hey, they made it this far. They found the lost planet of eternal treasure. They, deleted the coordinates from Achrann. Why not go the extra level or the extra step once you find this place to really protect it for hundreds, if not thousands of years into the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, given what we've seen on At Achrann, it seems unlikely that the captain of the Onyx Cinder would be the one who instituted all of the like experimentation,
unless it was a robot captain.
Yeah, unless like the captain was a part of the system, which seems weird. But yeah, I mean, it almost seems like you were saying that SM-33 was trying to keep people in the ship. Like, you can't get off because the captain, whether it be him or another captain, has ordered everybody on this ship to be killed. Yeah, so exactly. You're not getting the fuck off of here. So did anybody make it off? It's very possible that people did, because if he's like hanging on that lever to close the door, then people were at the very least making their way there. And it's possible that somebody slipped off, and it's possible that like they just integrated themselves into this society to a point to where like nobody has realized that somebody who wasn't a part of the original experiment is there. Could that have anything to do with Wim and his father and his family lineage? It's possible.
What if when we find out that the supervisor, it's like it's the top of SM-33's chassis is just like sitting there plugged into like this supercomputer? Yeah,
just like another version of it. Yeah.
All right, let's hit the live stream chat real quick, Nick. We got one coming from Anthony, YouTube fan here, asking us, "Hey there, Way, being responsible, cooking breakfast for the fam for tomorrow. What a guy." At Achrann's carvings, did a lightsaber scorch it? We actually touched on that when you were gone, Anthony. I felt the same way when I first saw it, but if you listen a few moments later, SM-33 is like, oh yeah, I did that. The captain made me do it.
Yeah, I ripped that shit off myself.
So yeah, that even though I agree, first watch definitely looks like a saber scorch. Apparently our boy Smee the robot did that. Props, we love you, brother. Oh, Nick, you probably don't know this, but Props got our clip in front of Ravi, and he shared it and thanked us for being supportive of the show and the KidCast. So that was nice.
Hey, that's amazing.
Anthony following up with, I asked the question because it's been revealed that Jod will find and decipher Sith writing on a structure. Yeah, I mean, we've seen that cave shot. Who knows if he actually decodes it. But yeah, we've been riffing on Jod and his Force connections for quite some time, so stick around.
Yeah.
Nova's saying, I was thinking the area was gassed and he closed the door. Fern told them that story at the beginning, but there could be some truth to it. Yeah, I mean, maybe they crashed in the mine, gases were coming in, and who knows? I mean, this is why this show is great, even when you hit an episode that's a bit slow. Because even those last 5 to 8 minutes has us all spinning our wheels, wanting to know what's going to happen next, having us forget that, episode 4 was kind of lackluster. It wasn't very exciting. There was no adventuring taking place. It was a lot of words, a lot of talky talk. That's Skeleton Crew for you. I mean, I think the mysteries that they've woven are fantastic. And while we got really no new insights into the Jod-Na and the Wood mystery outside of you really don't know what this guy is. I mean, he clearly stole Wim's cash, but then used it
to free them.
But can't you argue he was technically saving his own ass? Because they did ambush him at the Onyx Cinder, so he's probably like, hey, but they talked though, like he knew who the Troik were going to be, and he knew that bringing the Opies back would be good, and it might help him. So he is really feeling more and more like a Han Solo versus someone that really has a bad bone in his body and he's just really good at covering it up.
Yeah. And I mean, the other question is like, okay, he gets these credits, like he gets these old, but what do the people on At Achrann want with these fucking credits? Like, why would they just take these credits?
We do know they actively trade, so instead of using Opie hides that they just gave up, Nick,
maybe
I'm
they
assuming
just use
that honestly, and the way that shit's perceived in the known galaxy, those little dataries could be worth millions and millions and millions of credits. So they're about to upgrade their forces. So Hana better be taking some notes from Neil and try to make peace with these motherfuckers, or they're about to get devastated by an Imperial Star Destroyer that they pick up in an auction.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that was super interesting. But yeah, I mean, I assume that they're also familiar with that style of currency. If it was being used on At Attin, it was probably being used on At Achrann as well. But yeah, I mean, Jod is definitely like the second biggest mystery of this show now.
He became even murkier after this one because, you know, the kids, he is kind of subservient to the kid captain. He has this babysitter protocol, which was fantastic. Yeah. He clearly is trying to steal their shit or go through their stuff, but in the end, he ultimately does the right thing. So, yes, Jod mystery didn't move much, but still a great one. The mystery of the 9 jewel planets of the Old Republic, massive. We did get a little drip on that. And the SM-33 mystery and how he was on At Attin in the first place, we got more insights into that. So, as we've been saying throughout this deep dive into episode 4 Skeleton Crew, it might not have been a banger on the surface, but beneath it, it had some lore layers, it added to the mystery, and it's keeping us theory crafting like some mofos. So even when Skeleton Crew is a bit off its game, it's still some damn good Star Wars here. Anthony, we've been saying that too. Anthony's mentioning like this could be some sort of Wizard of Oz kind of reveal. Yeah, we've been saying that from day one. So you are with like-minded mouth breathers here. See you later, Bango. One more from Anthony, then we'll get back to the conversation here. Time I got to say, when I saw Jod encounter that tribe, I thought, did he pull a kind of mind trick on them along with paying them in dataries?
He could have kept those dataries and just did the mind trick.
Well, remember, Nick, it was like a bootleg mind trick, so he could only maybe just convincing them to take the money was enough instead of taking his hide. All right. So let me we'll see. Weasel through any more of these Hans that we had. We talked about King No Head, leader of the great work. Okay, Jod says this is an ashy, dusty planet. Reminds him of home. Is this guy possibly from one of the failed jewels then? Or just a planet? And that's the point I was making earlier, and I'm sure you picked up on it. But At Achrann showed these kids for the first time what a Star Wars planet typically looks like. War-torn, just ravaged by conflict. So, I mean, is Jod from a jewel, or is he just from a planet that has seen nothing but destruction and death? So, like Navarro, Tatooine, shit like that.
Yeah, Corvus is another one. I would think that, I mean, and look, he plays a lot of stuff close to the chest, so not necessarily like completely discounting this, but you would imagine that it seems like all the jewels have the same naming structure. So if he heard like these kids are from At Attin, aside from knowing it as a pirate treasure planet, he would probably also be like, well, my planet was called At Acoda, like you said, or something like that. Like, is this planet related to mine?
I mean, Nick, more than likely, it seems he has the Force, so it's probably Tatooine, right? That's where we're headed.
Yeah, funny. But yeah, it's like that would be another interesting. Like, do any of these jewel planets even know what the Force? I mean, like they know what the Force is because they know. Oh yeah, they
know the tales of the Jedi. I mean, Wim had it could be like the tales of the Knights that slept for 100 years. I mean, he's got Jedi lore drops left and right.
Yeah. So is it like one of the planets or one of the jewel planets like was that experiment specifically like, hey, let's only people who are like Force sensitive live on this version and see what happens, because I think that would be a very interesting experiment is to like have everybody who lives on your planet is just a force sensitive person and like has the ability to tap into the force in a physical sense. Because yes, everybody does have, M count. Everybody does have access to the force, or the force flows through them, but not everybody can manifest it physically. So I think that would be a super interesting experiment. It's like, okay, like everybody who's on the 5th At planet is force sensitive. What happens? The people lose their mind with power? Do they control themselves? Like, how does this society break down? So it's possible, but I think it's unlikely given the fact that he has such a reputation in the galaxy, and he seems to not be that old. Like he's in his late 40s, mid 40s, maybe.
Yeah, we'll give him early 40s. I mean, he very well could be the age of Darth Vader, because that's what Vader would be around now, right? And then we figure that out.
Yeah,
Vader was 23 when he became Vader. When he first met his son, he would have been what? 33.
He would have been
41. So Vader would be in his 50s by now then.
Yeah, he would be a bit older for sure, 50s, 60s. Yeah, I mean, he probably was born, if I had to take a guess, this guy was probably born at the tail end of the Grand Republic, of the prequel Republic era. Just given his age, given the fact that he has the Force ability, but he hasn't mastered it, and it doesn't seem like he's had a ton of formal training with it.
I don't see him ever spending time at the temple.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that he's from a jewel planet. I think that he's probably from one of the, like, his
just say,
way of speaking about it.
You know it.
I hope it's not Tatooine, because the thing about Tatooine is there's no ash. Like, for me, it's one of the
Navarro hits, right?
Yeah, Navarro hits for sure. It's got to be one of the more war-torn planets. So like it's like a planet that was caught up in a lot of the CIS versus Republic conflict, and then maybe rolls into additional conflict after that once the Empire takes over, is kind of what my thought process is.
All right. I wrote down Neil is different. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, he was kind of who we were leaning towards could exude the Force in our prediction show. Last week, I ran with the theory that maybe it's KB, and that's why she has to wear the visor to kind of keep her Force powers muted, because why the hell would you want someone with magic on a planet that is meant to be hidden and is very controlled in terms of the information that comes and goes? But Neil really showed us he's very empathetic. He's very kind. He understands that there's a better way to live than fighting.
Yeah.
Like his time on At Attin has served him well. Like he understands, like, hey, this is a good way of living, except I don't know that my entire life's being controlled.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like for a kid like that to finally have that revelation, it really does. He doesn't have the mental capacity to really understand what is going on At Attin.
Yeah, I don't think any of them do. They're slowly, I think they're slowly starting to figure out, like, holy shit, we come from a really weird place.
Yeah. And it's also like, as an adult, even if, like, imagine if you're Wim's father, you make it off and you don't have special knowledge, like we're kind of postulating that he does. Do you look at the galaxy en masse and be like, man, this whole place seems really fucked and everything seems super chill back on At Attin, so like I'm okay with whatever's going on there? Or do you want to accept the galaxy as a whole?
Well, I think it's clear Neil wants to keep living in the dream. I mean, he's like, hey, come live with us, Hana. Like, you can stay on our planet. You can stay in our house. I mean, he's like, yeah, he loves it. Like, he loves his little controlled reality. Now, I think when they find out that, yes, everything has been controlled and they really don't have freedom, he's going to change his tune. But as of right now, I think he is the biggest At Attin Kool-Aid drinker of the bunch.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, look, rightfully so. If there was a planet like At Attin that I could live on right now, I'd fucking be there.
Yeah. All right.
But
Bat saying Jod's from Mustafar's family was killed with timelines don't line up at all. Jod is older than Kylo Ren by a lot. So
Jod's
doesn't
older
quite line up. I'm telling you, people, it's going to be Tatooine. Just take it to the bank. Hey there, Darth LVJ. Hey now, what's up with that elephant Riz? That's right. We did talk about Neil's Riz.
Hey dude,
the guy's got it. I mean, the guy's got some game. He took a war-hardened young lass, and by the end, first she was yanking on his trunk, not the one he wanted her to yank on, but pulling him by his nose. But at the end, he got himself a little kissy kiss. So we respect his game, even though he's a bit of a wuss. But as I explained in my top moment, Nick, he did have enough courage to stand up to SM-33 and chuck a rock at his head. Luckily, Jod knows how to play space football. Otherwise, Neil probably would have been the first one to be ripped limb from limb from limb. How'd you like that they decided to go with a snorri cam for that moment? Where made it look all goofy because the camera was attached to the puppet?
Yeah, no, I thought it looked cool. Yeah. I really enjoyed that. And I also liked how steam just started coming, like he just started smoking.
I'm glad you brought that up because when he was initially talking to Jod on the ship and revealed about at Achrann, but then also, Jod kept asking about At Attin.
Yeah, the more times he smoking.
Yep, the more times he has to say, I don't know anything about At Attin, it literally is frying his fucking processors.
Yeah, it's frying his circuitry to a point to where he's like, he just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, the one time the little mouse had to pop out, like it was getting so intense in there with him trying to fight his programming. So is that because someone told him to, or he himself is the one that's kind of locked up his mind?
I'm waiting for a twist to happen on this mouse on Snowball.
It comes
Snowball's
out and starts speaking,
captain,
and it's like, I am the overlord I am the main space pirate. I took over for the pirate king who died on Navarro.
I'm so unsure of everything now because kind of like in the Acolyte, like there are so many different mysteries that are kind of intertwining with each other that like every time you think of something that seems innocuous, you're like, but is that a mystery too? Could that be a fucking another key point? Like it just gets to a point to where it's like everything you see is now a new mystery or is potentially a part of the mystery.
Oh yeah, dude, they all start to cascade into each other, and you know that's why this show is so fun to speculate on, but it's dangerous. I mean, there's going to be a needle we have to thread, and I think we've gotten in the hole a few times, but we're probably off. And as much as I love speculation wins, I'll tell you what, as a human, I love being surprised even better than knowing what's coming. So I do hope we are surprised, but I think so far, 4 episodes in, Nick and I have laid out some pretty good theories for those that are listening, and we try to get you to listen because we clip up the show each week and put out some of the clips that the AI thinks will be the most popular. So make sure to check those out. We'll be doing 1 round of those before we enter into our 2-week break, but more on that later. All right, man, a few more things. I already mentioned, like, guarantee that rooftop gun is not just at Achrann. That's probably on every 100%. School. And I think Neil is going to be the one to know to use it when it needs to be used. As in someone does follow them to At Attin, be it pirates, whatever. The gun's coming out again, okay? Nick, why do you think Achrann had all these satellites? They clearly weren't doing jack shit. It's not like they didn't seem very defensive, I guess. And we didn't see these on At Attin. So do you think these maybe get put by one of these jewel planets after the experiment has failed? Or was this their version of the barrier?
Yeah, I mean, that was my initial thought, was that the satellites were probably installed after, especially once the society was a little bit more in chaos, and it was more dependent on off-world travel. Like,
that makes sense. It's like this is how maybe their communication beacons, or this is how they can, as you said, do their trading or let people land, shit like that. Oh yeah, because that's right. Because once they cross through, an autopilot routine kicks in, right?
Yeah, it kicks in and it takes them down.
Okay,
so.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think was behind At Achrann and General Strix's fixation on children being adults, children having to be the scouts? I mean, he literally was about to shoot our cast because they didn't want to go first when they thought they were going to have this raid against the Hattans.
Yeah.
What the hell do you think that is? Like, why did they? Because the Hattans aren't living this way. They don't have kid warriors.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is so hard to speculate on because it really depends on like how this structure broke down. Now, you could look at it in a way where the Troiks are the original inhabitants of the planet, and the experimentation level that's going on At Achrann has to do with how children are treated in society. Children are put forward in society into places that adults usually would, or they're treated more adult-like. And that was like one of the experimentation protocols. And then maybe the Hattans that are there aren't native to At Achrann or weren't a part of the experimentation that was happening on At Achrann. They could be like off-worlders who decided after the experiment had broken down and after off-worlders started to come to At Achrann more frequently, like, hey, we're going to fucking, like, maybe they were just a band of, like, the Hattans were like a nomad society that were living out in space, and they were like, well, fuck it, we're gonna come down and we're gonna live here, we're gonna take over this planet, and that's how the war happened. I don't know. I found it to be weird that they're essentially forcing children to be child soldiers. It could be a case that the Troik ranks are just decimated. I mean, their adults are all but gone, and so that's all they have are the kids. But it is very, very odd how you have these two warring factions on this social experiment planet, and how different but similar they are. If you notice, their armor's kind of the same. The Hattans, they just paint their shit red, and it's almost like they're trying to dress themselves like samurai, where the Troiks are a little more traditionally kind of guerrilla warfare dressed. Yeah, that's what almost makes me think that one of the factions, I don't know which one, but either the Hattans or the Troiks are not native to that planet. Like, they have shown up after the fact, and have claimed, and like that's what kind of kicked the war off.
Yeah, Anthony, that's kind of what we're thinking too. Anthony's saying, I have a feeling that each of these 9 planets may have very different societal settings, and their histories may be markedly different. Each jewel tells a different tale. Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. We're just, we're never that on point and focused with our theories. I got a few more for you. Anyone else pick up, and I'm still trying to figure out the significance of this. I've got kind of a shitty screenshot to show it off. But the Troiks, every Troik warrior on their uniform and their helmet, Nick, they had a cluster of 7 dots. At first, I was like, oh, those could be representing the jewel planets, but we know there's at least 9 of those. So any significance, you think, or am I reading a bit far too into this shit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's significance to it, to the factions on the, like, to the Troik faction.
I was trying to connect it to something, either old Republic, New Republic, High Republic, the Galactic Empire. I don't know. It was odd that they had very clear faction markings.
Yeah, not that I could draw from immediately, but that may come up in, like, the next planet we go to may have something similar. But
Bat's saying, did the girl have less? No, they all had the same. It was just 7 dots. And you know what? Maybe because their sanctum did look kind of jacked up, maybe they only knew of the 7 other planets. Or maybe that was the symbol they were given as their society to use, to worship. Just like we saw the patch on the back of Fern's backpack. Maybe that's their symbolism on At Attin. So each one kind of has their own deal. All right, what else do we have on here? We got the 7 dots. We talked about 33 and how he was used on. You notice 33 is still very fixated on protecting a treasure. Okay? Because at the end, he's like, and the captain told me to rip them limb from limb for anyone who comes poking around about the treasure. So, I mean, who knows? The pirates were thinking they were going to get treasure, but more than likely, Nick, are you starting to think at this point in time they didn't find treasure?
There's no treasure. Okay. The treasure is the treasure was the journey all along.
There you go.
But there's a different, like, it's. I know we saw a treasure room.
Oh yeah.
And I know that is like what we have been kind of pointing to is like, oh look, there's this treasure room. Maybe there's something in this treasure room. Blah blah blah. But probably what the treasure is like it is a concept, or it is the planet as a whole is the treasure.
I agree.
Because it is the planet that is untouched by, all of the chaos that has been happening in the galaxy. And it's the only one of these planets that didn't fall to chaos along with the rest of the galaxy.
Hold on, man. We gotta call out our boy Nova Toymation here. Thank you, Nova Toymation, for that super chat. Happy holidays to the SWS crew. You hit him with the hind this year, and looking forward to more shows in 2025. Cheers. We appreciate you, Nova. Love you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony, did you guys talk about the satellites in the atmosphere? Yeah, we just did. Might need to rewind that one. And Bat's right. Just you'll catch up. Don't worry. Yeah, their BMAT is saying, if this boils down to the journey is the treasure, I might cry. They're still going to surprise us. I really think the pirates might have been after traditional treasure or some form of loot, but I ultimately think whatever is on At Attin isn't that. If that's there, sure, but it's got to be some sort of resource or relic that is galaxy changing.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't go through all this trouble for jewel planets, hidden planets, controlled societies if it's just fucking loot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You don't do that for a stockpile of gold or something.
All right,
like
my
that.
man. Well, I've made it through all of my ha's. I think we have answered them. Do you have any other gospel to deliver to the fandos, or shall we cross over to the fan segment to close this bitch out?
Yeah, let's move on. I think that we've done a good job. Yeah.
All right, so here we go, people. We have made it to the end of show fan segment. We do it every week, and it's been picked up by other Star Wars fan channels across the nation. There's two ways to get involved outside of the Ask Us Anything, which we did earlier. Okay, we had a good one on, hey, explain Abeloth to us. So hopefully I did her justice in speaking about the mother and where she can be read about. But anyways, the other way to get involved, if you don't want to ask us anything, you can answer the question of the week, which we put out every week, typically on Tuesday or Wednesday. And the question is always going to be themed to our show's main segment. So as we're talking about Skeleton Crew, the question's always going to be, hey, did you like this or not like it? What was your favorite part of episode X? And then we will truly close out the show with the other way to get involved as a fan, and that is our top 5 Star Wars fan artist features of the week, which we host through Instagram and then put up on our site, starwarstime.net. More on that in a bit. Stay tuned. But right now, we're going to go ahead and check out the very, very few questions of the week. I don't know if IG was jacked again today or what, Nick, but both the story where we were asking for questions and then the question of the week utterly failed. You never know. It could be a Star Wars time show stank type of thing. We shall see. But we did ask the fans this week, what was your favorite or least favorite part of Skeleton Crew episode 4?
All right. So first up, we have League of Extraordinary Sixthers. She's always in our replies and in the chat, and we appreciate that for sure. So thank you, League. She says, for a mid-season episode, it was a bit weak. This episode should have been the one to make us have all the feelings and wanting more. Otherwise, SM33 is still top tier, and the kids are great. So kind of agrees with us that this was not the highlight of the season thus far. Nova Toymation says it was a solid episode. When they first got to the planet, I thought they were running into some interdimensional issues or something. I really like how they've stumbled upon a sister planet to their own and the coordinates to the others. It just adds a ton more mystery to At Attin and these other connected planets. Can't wait to see the rest of it play out. Agreed. And then finally, we got Bat. We got 2797 Studios. He says SM33 continues to be the highlight for me week to week. I know this episode was very Neil-centric, but SM33 just continues to make me smile when he pops up. Good episode, advancing the story, building bonds with the crew. Actors continue to shine. Can't say I remember no At Attin. I can't either. I can't remember no At Attin.
All right, good stuff there.
Love it.
Yeah, you know what? I had a feeling this week was going to be. It's just I get this feeling in my gut.
The episode itself wasn't.
If an episode isn't making me go like, oh, la, 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 yeah, blah, 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 ooh, 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 I want to talk. It's typically that's how most people are going to react, and that kind of slows down the interaction for the show here. All right, doesn't matter, right? We still got one part to go in the fan segment here, and it is Nick's. He is the Lord of it, so let him know who hath Lord Nick chosen this week for the top 5.
All right, for the top 5 this week. To get involved, make sure to follow at StarWarsTime.show and tag us at StarWarsTime.show on your Instagram post.
Yes.
To kick off the top 5 this week, we have Capes and Rifles. Capes and Rifles is a longtime Star Wars fan follower or Star Wars Time show follower and always tags, or has recently begun to tag again, I will say. And this shot from Capes and Rifles is awesome. We got a Maul DeLorean mid-flight. This is probably during the battle on Mandalore during Mandalorian Season 3. Got the shield out, got the sweet-ass helmet, all looking nice, gun ready, blasting off into the sky to go hunt down those pesky Mandalorian warriors. I just really enjoy. I think
it looks good.
The figure looks great.
It's a hot
Fantastic.
toy. I got this guy on pre-order. So Capes and Rifles, give me a little preview what it's going to look like if I ever get it and actually take it out of the box. I did a thing this week with figures. It was a long time coming, but I finally opened all of my unopened Black Series from the last 2.5 years, which again just speaks volumes to this show. Like Skeleton Crew has me knee deep back in Star Wars fandom, wanting to collect, wanting to kind of commemorate the good feelings I have over Star Wars. So shots like this, toys in my pre-order list, getting ready to ship. I think Chopper's coming next week. You couldn't ask for a better holiday season coming up as a Star Wars fan and collector. So check out @capes.and.rifles on Instagram.
That's right. Next up,
this is a fucking gem.
This is a good one. We got Little Big Boy Junior, little_big_boy_junior. And we got a battle between master and apprentice, or former master and former apprentice. So we see Ahsoka, the white, well, not the white from the Ahsoka show, but Ahsoka with her white blades, going fully at Vader, full like jump Matrix style combat happening from the Ahsoka side of things. Vader completely caught off guard, off balance, his lightsaber just kind of askew to the side as Ahsoka comes down and kicks him right in the chest. I love like the posing of both figures, the lightsaber effects, the face that you can see on Ahsoka is perfect for for the action stance that she's in. All around, just everything about this shot, I feel, is just really, really strong.
Nick, I believe, even though this is what we call our Ahsoka the gray, so her bluish gray form, I believe this is a recreation of a move she does on him in Star Wars Rebels when they're fighting on Malachor.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean that's why it looks. Kudos to Little Big Boy for being able to pose these little plastic dickheads to match an animation cell. It's beautiful. I mean, Ahsoka's not wearing the right garb, but who gives a shit? This is a fantastic shot. It's what we would call a wall hanger around the SWTS HQ.
Oh yeah, good stuff. At little_big_boy_
here we go.
Junior.
Now we're theme correct.
We're theme correct now. We're back. We got Black Series Bonanza here. We're back into the Skeleton Crew stuff. So what you see here is the Pirates of Skeleton Crew. You see Brutus. I mean, that almost in the back right behind Brutus, that almost looks like Bill Burr's character from fucking Mando.
It is. Don't worry.
Okay.
I guess we're maybe this is one of their first pirate missions where he was trying to become Captain Silvo.
Yeah, so you see Captain Silvo, aka
Jadna Nawood,
Jadna Nawood,
Crimson
and
Jack.
then aka Crimson Jack. He's there to the left, Brutus in the center. You got Bill Burr off to the right, and an Ithorian pirate there in the back. They've clearly just busted in, guns ablazing, getting ready to take some treasure of their own. Caption boarding party here from Black Series Bonanza. Obviously, they're raiding some sort of ship. So I love the lighting. I love the atmospheric effects and how even in post they have the light diffusing through the atmosphere. All around, I just thought that this was a really well set up shot for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, that Brutus figure is awesome. Mine came in. Charlie and I, we unboxed them over. She loved it. She loved opening these toys. That's probably why I opened 30 boxes of old figures I probably could have sold, but who cares? I'm a good dad, right? But yeah, Brutus is awesome, especially when you make his eyes glow. He just pops even more. And like you said, the atmosphere helps to kind of sell the shot with that red coloring from the blaster fire. It's very reminiscent of their siege from the opening moment in Skeleton Crew episode 1. So kudos to at Black Series Bonanza. Finally, someone with an all one word handle.
There you go. Next up, we got Mando Mugshots. Mando Mugshots is one of our faves around here. Yeah. And Mando Mugshots gives us an awesome Mandalorian-inspired shot. So you see Din Djarin, Din Grogu, and not Din... This is Bo-Katan Kryze in the back, and an awesome explosion off to the side. So Bo-Katan and the Din boys have raided an Imperial vessel or Imperial remnant vessel and are clearly causing chaos with the explosion going on. I mean, the posing, the after effects all look great. Super crispy, clean looking shot here from Mando Mugshots.
Yeah, I mean, Mugshots still, to me, is a master of the Digirama blend with practical. I still don't know how they do it. I mean, the foreground, it does look a part of the background. Apparently, that explosion, Nick, is all practical, which is wild. He's a maestro with these little pieces of plastic. So kudos to at Mando_Mugshots. Check them out on Instagram today.
That is right. And to close out this week's top 5, we have art. Yeah, we have some art. We have at Honid, HONNID, first time in the top 5 for at Honid on here on Instagram. And we got an awesome look at some. I mean, these aren't death troopers. Which troopers are these with the black and red visor? Purge troopers. Yep. There we go. I thought their helmet looked a little different, but yeah, Purge troopers, fully drawn by Honid here, it looks like. And if you scroll through, you just get good close-ups on all the detail that's put into this work of art here by Honid.
Buddy. Here we go.
And man, I mean, you can see the gory blood details on the wound on the right trooper's hand, and man, just excellent stuff here. I mean, any trooper like Purge troopers or any trooper that's got an all black getup with some red highlights to it. Always a big fan of that. But the quality of the drawn animation here is just absolutely fantastic.
I've got a hot toy of one of these guys coming pretty soon, I think.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. Can never have enough hot toys. All right, buddy. Let's shut them down, right?
Well, that is it. Yeah. So at Honid, HONNID on Instagram. Make sure to follow. But that is the end of the top 5, and that is the end of our show for this week. So, Matt, go ahead and close us out.
Whew, that is right, my friends. And we've got a few little housekeeping things before we say goodbye, because we are not going to grace your airwaves, at least for at least as a dual show, for the next 2 weeks. We're going to go ahead and take a break for the holidays. So next Wednesday is fucking Christmas Day. All right. You shouldn't be watching anyone on YouTube unless it's someone in your family. And if you hate your family, you still shouldn't be watching YouTube. Play a video game, watch Star Wars, something like that. The week of New Year's, again, New Year's Day, we're not going to have a show. But there is a good chance the old guy that screams at clouds on this show will fire up the camera and mic the New Year's week, either Thursday or Friday, just to chat with the fans a bit about the episodes 5 and 6 of Skeleton Crew. So New Year's week, good chance there's going to be a live. When it comes down to how we are going to cover episode 5 and 6 while we're on break, I'm not 100% clear on that yet. It will depend on how this week's review does. Last week's Nick actually did kick into gear after a day or two. Got us, many thousands of views and added new followers. And if that keeps up, there's no way this guy is going to be able to put that torch down. I've been trying for many years to gain traction on this fucking channel. And now that we have it, I'm going to be hard pressed that I'm just going to kick my feet up and sit back. But if this week bombs out, next week, I don't know. Might not be a full breakdown. Might be something, not a full breakdown. But you are going to get something from me over these next 2 weeks. So stay tuned to the channel. If you're new here, sub up. Turn on notifications. Go to StarWarsTime.net. Follow us on our other socials. I will be sending out smoke signals, letting people know what the plan is. I can tell you 100% faithfully, with truth, that this show will not be on the Wednesday of Christmas Day or Wednesday of New Year's Day. I'll follow that up, though, with you're probably going to get some form of Skeleton Crew content over the next 2 weeks coming from the youtube.com/Star Wars Time Show channel. So make sure you're subbed. Make sure those notifications are on. Make sure you're paying attention to our socials. Join the Discord. It's open and free. That's a great place to ask questions like, hey, dude, what's going on? I just want to let you all know that I'm not going to forget about you. Okay? We're going to give Nick his little break. I need a break too. But there's a good chance that it's not going to be for 2 full weeks. Okay? So no Star Wars Time Show for 2 weeks. Matt Show in some capacity. You're probably going to get some Skeleton Crew thoughts. All right? So stay tuned to us. Keep loving us. Here's to a great 2024, at least the end of 2024, young Nick. We've had a nice little boost here at the end. We're a big boy channel now. We piss off our fans with ads midstream and mid-content. We've made it. Just remember, people, there's always time for Star Wars Time, even when we're not here live. I'll always be putting something out. Nick's going to have some Opus clips coming out. We will not fall off the face of the earth. We are not at Achrann. We are at Attin. We are perfect. We are a utopia. And we will see you as a duo again in 2025. But stay tuned for Skeleton Crew E5 and E6 thoughts from yours truly, coming out on an odd schedule, but you'll get something. All right, Nick, I want you to have a great little break, buddy. I'll see you again on, let's give the fans a date when Nick's going to be back. January 8th. Can we can count on that, right? Is Nick?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
January 8th.
Nick will be back January 8th. That'll be our first live as a duo in 2025, and we will be breaking down Skeleton Crew Episode 7 just like we do. All right, my friends, there's always time for Star Wars Time, and if you listen to the Star Wars Time Show. Yes, happy Festivus to you, League. Merry Christmas to you, Bat, and everyone else. And happy holidays to the rest of you. As we always say, if you do listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you always.